Chapter 2768. Indeed, the sacred lord of 10,000 Thunder's face was full of fear. If he didn't have the lightning god's wings, he would have died just now. That wisp of killing intent was too terrifying. Perhaps only a sage's treasure artifact could resist it. That was just a wisp of killing intent. If the other party was truly revived, how terrifying would it be? Everyone didn't dare to imagine. At this moment, the sacred lords and sect masters all looked at the top. They remembered the tall purple powerhouse they saw earlier. It was him. It must be him. That purple powerhouse was at least a sage. Don't provoke him. Everyone trembled. Inside the Black Mountain was a sage of the far ancient royal family. They couldn't resist it at all. They didn't dare to have any thoughts about the immortal divine herb anymore. Because the immortal divine herb had already flown near the cave entrance. Forget it, don't make any more moves. We can't alarm the sleeping sage. The Yi family patriarch, the Queen Mother of the West, and the others shook their heads. The other sacred lords also sighed. That was indeed the case. Judging from the aura just now, it was too terrifying. This shouldn't be the end. Let's look around. Everyone looked at the immortal divine herb reluctantly. They swore that they would bring back an even more powerful existence when they returned. To fight for it. The immortal divine herb was even more terrifying and precious than the Yuhua immortal robe. Presumably, these holy lands would definitely not let this matter rest. Perhaps they would ask their own sages to help. However, that was a matter for when they got out. Now they had to continue searching. The group of people continued to walk forward. They went around the Black Mountain, and Lin Xian and the dark red dragon followed closely behind. This time they were even more careful, because no one knew what kind of danger was waiting for them. Fortunately, the danger seemed to have disappeared along the way. They didn't encounter any array formations, which made everyone feel incredulous. The sacred lords and sect masters frowned. There was no road ahead. These people stopped. The front was indeed blocked. What's going on? Is this the end? Some of the elders of the sacred lands were puzzled. The young disciples were even more puzzled. The sacred lords frowned. No, it's not the end. The road is blocked. It seems to be a door that's blocking our way. A door? Heavens, it can't be, this place is so big. These young martial artists were extremely surprised. Lin Xian's eyes flickered as he activated his heavenly secret divine eyes. A golden light emerged as he scanned his surroundings. He realized that his surroundings had been cut off. If this was a door, it would probably be millions of miles away. The heavenly tree. This was the heavenly tree. One of the Yi family's grand elders exclaimed. The others were extremely shocked. The heavenly tree, what was that? This was a variant of the heaven and earth. It was extremely terrifying. Looking at this heavenly tree, it is estimated to be more than 100,000 years old. The black thing you see is actually not the door, but its trunk. What? How could a tree trunk be so thick? He couldn't see the end of it. Everyone was extremely shocked. Was this the heavenly tree? But why was this heavenly tree growing here? How could they pass? It was very difficult to pass through. This sky-reaching god tree was probably planted here by the experts of the nest of 10,000 dragons to prevent others from entering. The great elder of the Yi clan sighed, and the others started to discuss. Among them, Sacred Lord 10,000 Thunder snorted coldly. Isn't it just a heavenly tree? With so many sacred lords joining forces, I don't believe that we can't break it. That's right, this time, we brought a lot of sacred weapons. Everyone, let's attack together. The sacred lord of the Five Elements Palace also spoke. Many people's eyes were burning. Indeed, they were eager to know what was on the other side of the heavenly tree. Buzz, Sacred Lord 10,000 Thunder was the first to attack. Lightning surrounded his body, bringing about a powerful storm. At this moment, he was like the god of thunder. A pair of thunder wings spread out behind his back, forming two thunder balls that blasted forward. This pair of thunder wings was a terrifying sacred weapon. The attack it released carried a monstrous sacred might as it charged forward. Boom! Boom! Earth-shattering sounds rang out as lightning surged in the sky. It was so loud that everyone's ears were muddled. They couldn't hear anything else at all. Lin Xian used his heavenly secret divine eyes to see through the sea of lightning, and discovered that the heavenly tree wasn't damaged at all. It was just that the reef above was black. Heavens, what kind of tree is this? It's too hard. Even sacred weapons can't break through it. Kid, you don't understand. The heavenly tree is definitely one of the most terrifying sacred trees in the world. Moreover, this tree has been growing for at least 100,000 years. Think about it. The Varch has only lived for 10,000 to 20,000 years. How terrifying is a sacred technique after 100,000 years? Indeed. Lin Xian nodded. The martial artists of the Immortal Palace and the other sacred grounds all swallowed their saliva. Let me help you. The 5 elements sacred lord also walked out. He opened his mouth and spat out a 5 elements pearl. This was also a sacred weapon. At this moment, he released all the flames within the 5 elements pearl. The monstrous flames turned into 8 fire dragons that charged forward. Fire countered wood. Everyone was confident that this time, the heavenly tree would definitely be attacked. However, the trunk of the sacred tree didn't seem to be made of wood. Instead, it seemed to be made of metal that blocked the sea of flames. Damn it, as expected of the heavenly tree. Everyone, let's attack together. The 5 elements sacred lord's face was gloomy. The other sacred lords, sect leaders, and grand elders all had solemn expressions. They felt that they could try to break through it. After all, there wasn't any danger nearby. You young disciples, back off. Back off far away. We need to use many sacred weapons. The Yi family's grand elder stood out and said in a deep voice. Lin Xian, Yi Wudao, and the other sacred sons and prodigies all retreated with their martial artists. Boom! Boom! In front of them, the sacred leaders and patriarchs executed their martial arts. Wisps of shocking auras burst out from their bodies and soared into the sky. In an instant, the winds and clouds changed. The void in front of them quickly shattered. The heavens and earth trembled as if the world was about to be destroyed. It was too terrifying. Lin Xian and the others retreated once again. They had no choice. With so many sacred lords attacking together, and the power of the sacred weapons, it was truly terrifying. It could shatter everything. Light flowed around their bodies as they activated their king domains. Armor appeared and quickly blocked the attacks. However, the weaker ones couldn't block it at all. They spat out large mouthfuls of blood. Retreat! Retreat quickly! It was too terrifying. Lin Xian and the 9 sons' bodies shone brightly, but they also felt a great pressure. This was only the aftermath of the energy. If they were hit head-on, even an invincible king would be instantly killed. Perhaps even a sage wouldn't be able to withstand it. In front of them, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. The sky was filled with energy, and the void shattered. However, what was shocking was that the heavenly tree had withstood it. It was such a terrifying attack, but it wasn't damaged. Damn it, what kind of tree is this? This old tree must have become a spirit. This couldn't be a holy tree, right? These people screamed crazily. Chapter 2769. Unknowingly, dozens of figures appeared around Lin Xian and the others. These figures were wrapped in the aura of the Tao of Dragon, and they let out deep roars. Occasionally, everyone could see the scales that flickered with cold light under the aura of the Tao of Dragon, as well as the terrifying claws and teeth. The creatures of the nest of 10,000 dragons, Lin Xian exclaimed, and the people around him were also terrified. In front, the sacred leaders and sect masters also exclaimed. Damn it, could it be that they were alarmed? Buzz, more than a dozen creatures of the nest of 10,000 dragons quickly moved out, charging towards the young disciples like bolts of lightning. In an instant, blood spurted out, and screams sounded. Many people were torn in half, and blood dyed the sky red. Damn it, retreat! The sacred leaders roared, and the young disciples, saints, and geniuses all attacked coldly. Clang, the saint of 4 elements, fought against a humanoid creature, and was directly blasted back, his entire arm numb. Damn it, it was actually so powerful. The others were also stunned. It was too terrifying. What exactly were these things? Were they beasts or dragons? How could they be so terrifying? Damn it! The sect masters in front shouted coldly. 2 of them brandished their sacred weapons and charged over. Terrifying sacred might overflowed, shattering the sky. Terrifying flames burned fiercely with this attack. It was truly terrifying. Sure enough, many humanoid creatures were sent flying, their bodies exploding and turning into a bloody mist. This scene made these young disciples heave a sigh of relief. However, in the next moment they screamed. In fact, the sacred leader who attacked also let out a miserable cry, because one of his arms was directly torn apart. In front of him, a few humanoid creatures also appeared. The aura on their bodies was even more terrifying, like an abyss. As soon as they attacked, they injured a sect master. This scene made the sacred leaders cry out in alarm. Damn it! The creatures in the nest of 10,000 dragons had really awakened. Everyone retreat quickly. At this moment, they were really panicking, because they discovered that more and more terrifying creatures were appearing around them. How did they appear? These sacred leaders and sect masters didn't know. However, the terror of these creatures was far beyond their imagination. Even these humanoid creatures were holding ancient treasures in their hands to resist their sacred weapons. In an instant, a chaotic battle broke out. On Lin Xian's side, he also received a fierce blow. Foolish humans, you actually dared to trespass into the nest of 10,000 dragons. Go to hell! A cold voice rang out, causing everyone's scalp to go numb. Do it quickly! Lin Xian, Leaf Daodinier, Dustless, and the others all roared in rage. The other saints, Heaven's Chosen, and all the martial artists attacked as though they had gone crazy. At the same time, they quickly retreated, wanting to leave this area completely. Buzz on Lin Xian's side. A blue ray of light turned into a bolt of lightning and shattered the void, blocking the path of Lin Xian and the others. Dai, the azure figure, let out a cold voice that sounded like thunder. It was extremely terrifying as it rolled towards Lin Xian. This sound wave was too terrifying. The martial artists around Lin Xian vomited mouthfuls of blood as they retreated. Just a single sound wave was enough to severely injure them. Lin Xian snorted coldly. His 9-yang divine body bloomed with light as he forcefully resisted the terrifying sound wave. Those sound waves hit his body and made a sonorous sound. It was extremely vast and mighty, as if 10,000 thunderbolts were descending. However, Lin Xian was fine. Buzz! Clenching his hand into a fist, he rushed forward. This fist was like a sun that exploded in the void. The resplendent light illuminated the world. A terrifying force burst out from his body. With a bang, the azure figure in front of him was forced back. Damn human, you're courting death. The azure figure was enraged. He let out a long roar and 2 more figures appeared around him. They were also azure in color and incomparably deep, like the sea. The 3 figures were like 3 sharp blades as they charged towards Lin Xian once again. Foolish and lowly humans, today is the day you die. The aura of these 3 figures was too powerful. It was like 3 endless seas, pressing down on those people until they couldn't breathe. So strong. So terrifying. What were these things? The young disciples were stunned. Other than a few top prodigies, the others could only resist with all their might. What do you humans think you are? In front of the ancient royal family, you're just ants. The azure figure let out a sinister laugh. So now ants go to hell. 3 streaks of blue sword chi were produced from that light. They descended from the sky, and their sharp aura made people tremble. Ants! Lin Xian sneered. The light of the 9-yang divine body became more and more tyrannical. His fist had completely transformed into a golden crow as he charged forward. Boom! The light cracked, and the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The 3 blue heavenly swords were directly shattered. Not only that, the 3 azure figures were also forced back. 2 of them directly exploded, and blue blood splattered all over the sky. Imminent? Then what are you guys, who can't even block a punch from me? You're worse than ants. Lin Xian's voice was sonorous as he looked ahead disdainfully. At this moment, he was like a sun war god that people looked up to. Damn it, how could he be so strong? The azure figures were shocked. The surrounding archaic creatures were also stunned. What was going on? How could there be such a strong physique among the humans? Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, many ancient creatures gathered towards Lin Xian. The human race is not something you can insult. At this moment, Yi Wudao also said coldly. Then his fist turned into an unparalleled radiance, killing 2 humanoid creatures as well. This scene was also shocking. On Dustless' side, 10,000 rays of Buddhist light flashed. He also killed a few ancient creatures with his flower-pinching finger. Not good. There's a peerless genius among the humans. The ancient creatures' expressions changed, and their expressions became solemn. They originally thought that with their powerhouses restraining the sacred leaders and sect masters, they could easily kill the younger generation. They didn't expect that there would be such a powerful figure among the younger generation. However, that wasn't all. What shocked them even more was still to come. After Lin Xian and the other two, Dao Yi Sage, Gu Santong, No Flower, Morong Qingcheng, Shen Jingxiu, the dark red divine dragon Seiko Dian, all of the saint prodigies displayed extraordinary strength, which surprised the ancient creatures. In an instant, dozens of ancient creatures were completely suppressed. Many of them even bled. Their blood was blue, green, and black. It was very strange. Ancient creatures? The powerhouses of the nest of 10,000 dragons? They were only SOSO. Seeing the wavering light sage kill two ancient creatures in one strike, the warriors of the wavering light sacred land sneered. Lowly humans, what do you know? Do you really think you can compete with the ancient royal family? Our master hasn't awakened. Otherwise, one of them would be able to kill all of you. The humanoid creatures snorted. What? Master? These creatures actually called the sleeping dragons their master. Could it be that these ancient life forms were just servants? Heavens! Some slaves were so heaven-defying and terrifying to such an extent, they could compete with the top saints. Chapter 2770. Lin Xian and the others also had solemn expressions. If what the other party said was true, then the primordial emperor ancestor was truly terrifying. The dark red divine dragon sneered. A group of slaves dare to be arrogant in front of me? Hurry up and get lost. Otherwise they'll eat you. Lowly ants, you're courting death. The ancient creatures roared angrily. They stared at the dark red divine dragon. But soon, they cried out in surprise. Their bodies trembled. Dragon? You're actually a dragon. That's right, I'm a dragon. You slaves, why aren't you kneeling on the ground? The dark red divine dragon snorted coldly. The ancient creatures in front trembled. Their expressions changed drastically. No, you're not the dragons of the nest of 10,000 dragons. Who are you? Kill them. Kill them. They're plotting something. These people roared angrily. Their bodies emitted tens of thousands of rays of light as they charged out again. The battle erupted, and it was extremely intense. However, Lin Xian and the others were very powerful and gradually suppressed these ancient creatures. However, this was the nest of 10,000 dragons after all, and it was full of mysteries. These ancient creatures cooperated with each other and actually triggered the array formation here. In an instant, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. A terrifying aura swept in all directions. The entire world was boiling as a terrifying array formation enveloped the surroundings. This caused Lin Xian and the others to fall into danger once again. Boom! In front, the battle between the sacred leaders and sect leaders was also abnormally terrifying. Many ancient creatures appeared in the surroundings. These ancient creatures were very terrifying. They weren't weaker than these sacred leaders and sect leaders. In fact, many of the elders of these sacred lands were killed. Who? An elder of the 10,000 thunder, sacred ground, was surrounded by lightning like a god of thunder. However, a palm stretched out, tore through the lightning that filled the sky, and directly crushed his heart. With a puff, the body of the elder of the 10,000 thunder sacred ground split into pieces. However, that palm retracted, grabbed a heart, and directly put it into its mouth. Then he began to eat. This scene made everyone's scalps go numb. They looked forward. There was a tall human figure in front of them. It looked like a human, but it had a tail and wings. Its head was like a crocodile, and it was very terrifying. It had already killed 3 sacred ground elders. Each time it was a one-hit kill. It directly crushed the other party's heart, and then swallowed it. Buzz, the Great Derivation Sacred Lord, waved his Great Derivation Sacred Sword. The moment he slashed out, the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. The terrifying creature was sent flying. However, it was useless. More and more archaic creatures appeared in the surroundings, their auras incomparably terrifying. They also activated a terrifying killing array to kill these sacred masters and sect masters. The Queen Mother, Yi family's patriarch, Li Xuanxian, and the others had grave expressions on their faces. They noticed that other than the ancient life forms around them, there were also roars coming from afar. Furthermore, a shocking aura rapidly spread across the place and burst out from it. Not good. I'm afraid that the ancient royal family in the nest of 10,000 dragons is really going to revive. Everyone retreat quickly. After he returned, he would make further plans. These sacred leaders and sect masters began to retreat. Behind them, there were also many powerful archaic creatures. Some of them were even wielding broken artifacts as they charged over. Boom! In the distance, the heavens and earth shook once more. Countless auras of the Tao of Dragon erupted, and the mountain with countless black holes rumbled. The experts sealed within the divine crystals floated out. They were floating in the sky. Although their eyes were still closed, their auras were growing more and more intense. Buzz! In fact, a 10-meter-tall divine crystal also appeared in the sky. It was like an ancient demonic mountain, pressing down on these sacred masters and sect masters until they found it difficult to breathe. Not good. It's that primordial king. Everyone was shocked. They had encountered it before. The wisp of aura emitted by the other party had already made them extremely shocked. They didn't expect that the other party would appear again. If such a terrifying expert revived, they would probably be in danger. Whoosh! Whoosh! These people retreated crazily. Hurry up and contact our people. Summon our saints. Many people from the sacred lands and great sects shouted angrily. The Yi family, Gu family Immortal Palace, Jade Pool, and Alcade also took action. However, a peerless formation enveloped heaven and earth, isolating the aura. This prevented the teleportation array from being formed, and they were unable to send out the news. Lowly humans, do you still want to call yourselves humans? Today, you will be completely buried here. A cold and heartless voice sounded, and the murderous aura of the 9 heavens and 10 earths swept out. Accompanied by the aura of the Tao of Dragon, it formed a scene of destruction. Boom! 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 In front of them, the sky-reaching divine tree also slowly trembled, and its body gradually rose into the air. Obviously, this primordial divine technique was not dead, but alive. However, it was too huge. With a slight shake, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. In the sky, countless lightning bolts descended, dancing in the air as they charged towards the elders. Not good, the sky-reaching divine tree was about to attack. These people went crazy. They discovered that those bolts of lightning were not thunder, but the branches of the sky-reaching divine tree. However, each of them was extremely sharp. They were like divine swords that slashed in all directions, and these people could only desperately block them. Boom! Boom! The sky-reaching divine tree gradually left the ground, and the paths that it blocked also appeared. However, no one was in the mood to be excited. Originally, they wanted to know what was behind the sky-reaching divine tree, but now they couldn't care less. They fought crazily. However, some people could not help but take a glance, and then they screamed. "Dragon, it's a dragon!" The Grand Elder screamed. The other sect masters and sacred masters also probed their souls and looked into the distance. In the next moment, their scalps went numb. In the distance, Lin Xian and the others also looked over. Heavens! Lin Xian was shocked. Those people also screamed. "It's really a dragon!" That's right. Behind the sky-reaching divine tree, there was an even wider area. On that land, there were many figures lying cross-legged. They were like mountains lying there. The small ones were more than 10 meters tall, while the big ones were hundreds of meters tall. There was even one that was more than 10,000 meters tall. They could not see the end of it. At first glance, they thought that it was a mountain, but those people were too powerful, and their eyes were sharp. They realized that it was not a mountain at all. It was a body. Many bodies were lying on the ground like a mountain range. There were cold scales on them that flickered with a metallic light. They emitted a monstrous aura that caused one's blood to freeze. That was the pressure from one's bloodline and soul. Only an extremely powerful bloodline could cause such a scene. Everyone knew that those were dragons, The same dragons as in the legends. There were really dragons, and those dragons were all sleeping. Some of them were sealed by divine crystals, while others were sealed by dragon veins. In short, all of the dragons were in a deep sleep. However, the aura that they emitted was like an ancient abyss that could crush people. There were more in the distance. The dark red divine dragon pointed into the distance and screamed. He was a dragon, so he was more familiar with those things. Everyone hurriedly fought while using their souls to probe. The sacred masters and sect masters did the same. In the next moment, they were even more shocked. The reason for that was because they discovered that there were many god crystals floating around those enormous dragons, and even further away. Chapter 2771. The dark red divine dragon said, "Dragons, even more terrifying dragons." Everyone sensed carefully, and found that this was indeed the case. These human-shaped dragons were even more terrifying. Some of them even had dragon horns on their heads, some had dragon scales on their bodies, and some had dragon tails and dragon wings. They were extremely terrifying. Among them, the living fossils of the Tuoba family, Nangong family, and Ouyang family also quickly used their spirit-seeking techniques. They probed into the distance. They wanted to see clearly what was in the depths of the nest of 10,000 dragons. Their gazes became incomparably deep. Mysterious runes flickered, carrying a terrifying light that pierced through everything. These 3 living fossils were elders. They had already lived for more than 3,000 years. Their spirit-seeking technique was even more terrifying. This time, the 3 great spirit-seeking clans were led by them. Therefore, at this moment, they used their terrifying spirit-seeking technique, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. The entire world also underwent a strange change. In front of them, countless auras of dragons surged and gradually spread out. Everyone seemed to be able to see the scene in the distance clearly. However, the good times didn't last long. Not long after, the 3 living fossil-level spirit-seeking masters screamed in pain. They kept rolling and covering their faces with their hands. Blood flowed down their fingers. Elders, the people of the 3 great spirit-seeking clans, screamed crazily. What was going on? Why was their elder Zhang injured? The 3 living fossils elders of the 3 spirit-seeking clans screamed in pain. My eyes! Damn it, my eyes! They screamed crazily. Their eyes were bleeding, and they were directly blinded. The road ahead was once again covered by the aura. It was thick and heavy, and no one could see clearly again. This made everyone even more puzzled. What exactly did these living fossils see? Even their eyes were blinded. Could it be that they saw something they shouldn't have seen? Everyone's bodies trembled. What exactly was in the depths of the nest of 10,000 dragons? Elders, what did you see? The people of the 3 great spirit-seeking clans also quickly asked. However, the 3 living fossils elders shook their heads crazily. They didn't dare to say it. They would be blinded with just a glance. If they said it, who knew if the terrifying array formation of the nest of 10,000 dragons would directly kill them? However, if they didn't say it, these people became even more curious. This was especially true for the sacred leader and the sect master. They wanted to know more. The Taishan Saint Master was surrounded by 108 stars, as if he was the master of the starry sky. His eyes were like 2 universes. The light of the stars pierced through and shattered the aura of the Tao of dragons in the sky, opening up a path. The Yin-Yang sect leader had the Yin-Yang mirror above his head. Black and white auras flowed around his body. It was quite strange and terrifying. At this moment, he also activated the Yin-Yang mirror and shot out a beam of Yin-Yang light that shot forward. The head of the Gu clan appeared and disappeared unpredictably like a ghost. He directly used the void technique, causing the void in front of him to split open and devour the endless aura of the Tao of dragons. The Yi clan's clan head, the Queen Mother of the West, and the other sacred leaders and sect masters also attacked together. Li Zengxian's body emitted a sharp aura. A flying knife appeared in his hand. The flying knife was 2 fingers wide, and it flashed with an endless cold light. Buzz as the saber flew out. The sky fell and the earth cracked. Ghosts wailed and wolves howled. It pierced through the void. The terrifying aura caused the faces of the sacred leaders and sect masters to change. Those elders were also trembling. Some of them screamed, "Shao Li's flying dagger." It was actually him. Damn it, he actually joined the immortal palace. What? Are you talking about that amazing Shao Li's flying dagger, who swept through the 9 heavens and 10 lands with a wave of flying daggers? Some of the sacred leaders' faces changed. They didn't recognize him before. And he didn't use the flying dagger. Now that the flying dagger was out, it shocked the heavens and shocked the gods. It made them immediately think of that terrifying person back then. It was him. It was definitely him. They didn't expect him to appear again, after being silent for 800 years. Those elders and sacred leaders cried out in surprise. Behind them, Lin Xian and the others were also shocked. When the flying dagger appeared, these sacred leaders and prodigies felt their hair stand on end. Many of them directly knelt on the ground. They felt that this blade light would be able to annihilate them completely. Lin Xian's body also trembled. The great dragon sword soul in his body roared and blocked the shocking saber light. It was too terrifying. This was the most terrifying saber light he had ever seen. This Li Xuanxian was actually so terrifying. He hadn't seen him fight before, but now it seemed that his strength was definitely not weaker than those sacred leaders and sect leaders. Moreover, when he attacked, those sacred leaders and sect leaders looked as if they had seen a ghost. Could it be that Li Xuanxian had an even more shocking identity? That should be it. Yi Wudao, Dustless, Gu Santong, and the others also had serious expressions. The dark red dragon was even more shocked. This immortal palace was indeed mysterious and strange. Who knew what kind of peerless figure would appear in the future? With so many sacred leaders and sect leaders working together, they broke through the dragon aura in front of them. Everyone could once again see the scene in front of them clearly. In the next moment they cried out in surprise, their hearts beating wildly. Even the dark red dragon was shocked. He screamed, feeling that the blood in his body was about to freeze. Lin Xian, Yi Wudao, and the young disciples were even more frightened. The sacred leaders, sect leaders and grand elders also felt their scalps go numb. The reason for that was because they saw an altar in the distance. It was a 5-colored altar. The altar was very ancient and emitted a desolate aura. It had existed for countless years. On the altar, there was an egg, a golden egg. It was as big as a wash basin, and there were countless mysterious Tao patterns on it. They were densely packed and dazzling. The egg was golden. On the mysterious altar in the depths of the nest of 10,000 dragons, there was actually an egg. What kind of egg was this? Could it be a dragon egg? No one knew. However, this scene infuriated the ancient creatures in the surroundings. They roared and pounced crazily, causing the sacred leaders and sect leaders to no longer have the chance to observe. The young prodigies on Lin Xian's side were also fiercely attacked. In an instant, the endless dragon aura in front of them surged, once again enveloping the mysterious golden dragon egg. Everything could no longer be seen. As for Lin Xian and the other sect masters, they were all in danger. Many young disciples were killed, and even a few saints had their bodies pierced through. The battle in the distance was even more tragic. Many grand elders of the sacred grounds and sects were hacked apart. Their bodies were directly swallowed alive. What made them even more desperate was that in the sky, the 10-meter-tall divine crystal, the purple primordial king, suddenly erupted with a terrifying aura. It surged downward, turning into a thick purple aura that covered the sky and the earth. In an instant, many sacred leaders and sect leaders vomited blood. Not good, quickly block it. These sacred leaders and sect leaders all activated their sacred weapons to block the terrifying purple light. At the same time, countless ancient creatures appeared in the surroundings. Chapter 2772. In an instant, Li Xuanxian, the patriarch of the Yi family, the patriarch of the Gu family, and the Queen Mother of the West were all under intense attacks. These primordial creatures were too powerful. They could even mobilize the surrounding Tao of dragon aura and peerless killing formations at will. The sacred lord of 10,000 thunder used his lightning god's wings and flew quickly in the sky. 2 lightning gods' wings turned into lightning heavenly blades that slashed in all directions. Wherever they passed, for primordial creatures were cut in half, and blood splattered everywhere. The Yin-Yang sect leader held the Yin-Yang mirror and bombarded the surrounding primordial creatures. A jade lake appeared beside the Queen Mother of the West. A drop of jade lake holy water directly pierced through those terrifying creatures. It turned them into nothingness. The patriarch of the Yi family was like a golden god of war. He opened and closed his palms, creating a bloody path. The patriarch of the Gu family appeared and disappeared unpredictably. Every time he appeared, he could easily kill primordial creatures. Li Xuanxian was even more terrifying. The flying knives in his hand never missed. Every time he would kill with a single strike. There was even a time when he directly killed 7 primordial creatures with a single strike. It was truly terrifying. The surrounding sacred lords, royal lords, and Buddhist abbot all attacked one after another. However, the enemies were even more terrifying. Among these primordial creatures, there were a few that were very terrifying. One of them was surrounded by flames. The flame wings on its back spread out and directly burned several elders of the 5 Elements Palace to ashes. The other one had a long human form. It had a head of incomparably dark green hair and turned into a poisonous python. He held a green sword in his hand. With a wave of his hand, he killed several elders of the Dian sacred land and Tai dynasty. Buzz! The sky-reaching tree was even more terrifying. Its branches hung down and directly enveloped the elders of the Yi family, Gu family, Dao Yi sacred land and Jade Lake. In an instant they were hung up. Their heads were chopped off. In an instant blood spurted out, and miserable screams rang out. These were all peerless experts. Their blood turned into a sea of blood in the air, forming a hell of azura. The monstrous killing intent was astonishing, and it made one's scalp tingle. Terrifying, it was really too terrifying. This was an intense battle. Perhaps no one in the outside world would have thought that the Sacred Lord, who usually dominated a region and was respected by the world, would be injured. He was actually heavily injured and even killed here. On Lin Xian's side, he was facing an unprecedented crisis. Only the top saints could resist it with the treasures in their hands. Those young disciples could not resist at all. Even the weaker saints and prodigies were mercilessly killed. And this was just some servants dealing with them. If it was a true far ancient royal, it would be even more dangerous. As expected, an even more terrifying ancient lifeform roared and charged toward Lin Xian. The faces of Lin Xian, Leaf Dao Dinier, and the others instantly flickered. Not good, everyone join hands. The dark red divine dragon screamed and swung its tail, exuding a mighty dragon aura that intimidated the ancient creature. This primordial creature was extremely terrifying. The moment it appeared, the aura it exuded made the Shengzis feel as if they were facing a formidable foe. Everyone joined forces and attacked. However, it was shattered by a single slap from the primordial creature. The ground cracked open, and an endless aura of the Tao of Dragon filled the air. Those people all retreated. Lin Xian and Leaf Dao Dinier had strong bodies. Morong Qingqing, Shen Jingqiu, and the others also had bloodline power revolving around them. They only retreated. However, the other prodigies did not have strong bodies or terrifying bloodlines. Some of their bodies directly split open, and their blood dyed the ground red. With just a single strike, they had received such heavy injuries. This caused everyone to be extremely shocked. Roar! The ancient creature let out another roar and charged over again. After 2 moves, these people were even more heavily injured. Some saints and saintesses were even killed. Several princes of the Nineli dynasty were also killed. The monks of the western desert also vomited large mouthfuls of blood. Many of them had their heads smashed. Among them, Wuxia was the strongest. No Flower was also extremely mysterious. He pointed one hand to the sky and the other to the ground, exuding terrifying bloodline power. There was also a Zhang 6 golden body that shone brightly like a Buddha. He was Wuxian's junior brother and was also a terrifying prodigy. He cultivated the Zhang 6 golden body, which was a supreme body. The prodigies of the southern mountain were the same. For some reason, Yen Nantian did not come to the southern mountains Yen family. However, the prodigies of the Yen family were also extremely powerful. The demon kings of the northern plains' Demon King Palace roared angrily. At the same time, they were terrified. It was too terrifying. The ancient creature's bloodline power was causing them great trouble. Watayanda's face was gloomy. The bloodline power in his body shone brightly. However, he was also injured. The saints and prodigies were all injured. If the ancient creature continued to attack, they would be killed sooner or later. Qingqing Qiuer, are you okay? Lin Xian came to Shinjingqiu and Morong Qingqing and asked in a deep voice. The two of them shook their heads, but their faces were pale. Ruffian Long, do you have any ideas? Lin Xian asked. If not, he would really have to go all out. He would summon the great dragon sword soul, or enter the black earth directly. Wait, I'll try. The dark red divine dragon stepped forward. He did not attack. Instead, he spoke in a strange language. This scene puzzled Lin Xian and the others. They did not understand what it meant. In front, the tyrannical ancient creature was stunned. It stopped and looked at the dark red divine dragon in bewilderment. It also spoke the ancient language. They were communicating. Lin Xian took a deep breath. Yi Wudao, Gu Santong, and the others also had serious expressions. The great Xia prince, the Alcate sage, and the other prodigies were also waiting silently. The dark red dragon spoke the dragon language. The dragon language was a very noble language among the immemorial royal family. Apart from the dragon tribe, the immemorial royal family members should also know it. Therefore, the dark red dragon tried to speak. As expected, the ancient creature in front of them stopped and communicated with him. As the dark red dragon spoke, he emitted dragon blood and dragon might. The dragon blood surged and dragon might spread, causing the ancient creature in front of them to be puzzled. He did not attack, but his cold eyes were still filled with vigilance. He stood in front and stared coldly at the dark red dragon, Lin Xian, and the other prodigies. Ruffian Long, how is it? Lin Xian asked telepathically. Fortunately, these ancient creatures have just awakened, so they don't know much. Therefore, I should be able to fool him for the time being. Hurry up and tell the others not to act rashly. Hearing this, Lin Xian heaved a sigh of relief. He hurriedly sent a voice transmission to the saints, heavenly sect, and young martial artists, telling them to stay where they were and not move. After hearing this, they did as they were told. Chapter 2773. The ancient creature in front of them was too powerful. They all stood there with solemn expressions. Although the other party had not attacked yet, they did not dare to be careless. If the other party attacked, they still had to be careful. Lin Xian called over all of Immortal Palace's people to his side. He lightly tapped them, a pained expression on his face. Immortal Palace had also lost more than half of their martial artists. Fortunately, although Peacock and the others were injured, their lives were not in danger for the time being. Looking around, Lin Xian felt that he had really taken advantage of them. He had lost half of his martial artists, which was considered light. The Yi family and Gu family's losses were about the same as his. However, the other sacred grounds and sects were very miserable. The better ones lost 2/3 of their martial artists, leaving only 1/3 of their martial artists. The worse ones probably only had 1/10 of their martial artists left. Even those who survived had injuries on their bodies and looked miserable. Lin Xian raised his head and looked at the intense battle in front of him. He frowned. He could not fight or provide support now, so he directly activated the great dragon sword soul in his body. He frantically absorbed the surrounding Tao of dragon aura. The aura here was too strong. Lin Xian did not care if the others were in the mood, or if they had the courage. Anyway, he could absorb as much as he could. However, he did not make too much of a commotion and carefully absorbed it. Roar! The ancient creature suddenly roared in a low voice. The aura on his body spread out again. A pair of cold eyes stared at Lin Xian. Obviously, he had noticed Lin Xian's actions. Lin Xian snorted coldly. The great dragon sword soul in his body roared and a dragon's roar sounded. This made the ancient creature even more confused. The dark red divine dragon said a few more words in the dragon language. Only then did the ancient creature stop and not move. Seeing this, the dark red divine dragon also absorbed the Tao of dragon aura. The others were shocked. However, at this moment, an earth-shattering sound suddenly came from the front, attracting everyone's attention, including the ancient creature in front. They all turned their heads to look. Lin Xian raised his head while absorbing. Then he was shocked. In front of him, the 10-meter-tall divine crystal suddenly cracked open. The ancient royal inside, the purple figure, opened his eyes. His gaze turned into an evasive one, sweeping across the 9 heavens and 10 earths. In an instant, many of the elders below were penetrated by the gaze and nailed to the ground. Oh no, he's resurrected. Lin Xian, Leaf Daodinier, the Grand Xia Crown Prince, and the others all looked completely flabbergasted. As for the sage lords and pontiffs, their scalps went numb. An archaic king had been resurrected. Damn it, he's too strong. Everyone be careful. Hurry up and use your saint weapon. The sacred leaders, sect leaders, and grand elders no longer dared to be careless. They gathered one after another and activated their saint weapons, sweeping out in all directions to resist the archaic king. Previously, they had guessed that the primordial king was very likely a sage, although the other party's aura and cultivation were very unclear. They did not know whether the other party was a saint or not. However, it was obvious that the other party was too powerful. This was far beyond their expectations. Even if they used their saint weapons, they would only be able to contend against the other party. Damn it, this definitely surpassed the realm of invincible kings. Was he really a saint or not? He wasn't sure. He hadn't used any saint laws at all. These sacred leaders and sect leaders were all stunned. After the other party appeared, his figure flashed, and he arrived in front of 2 royal elders of the Divine Wind dynasty. With a slap of his big hand, he directly smashed the 2 royal elders into pieces. Then, he came in front of the monks of the myriad Buddhist sect, and similarly waved his fist. He blew up 3 monks. It was too terrifying. The other party was simply the king of close combat. He didn't use any laws at all. He directly used his physical strength to kill in all directions. After the purple archaic king appeared, the surrounding divine crystals also shattered. One archaic creature after another opened their eyes and charged over. Damn it! The Yi family patriarch roared and spat out a bronze cauldron that suppressed the surroundings. With a bang, a terrifying aura blasted the surrounding archaic creatures away. However, the purple archaic king was completely unaffected and directly charged over. With a clang, a palm slapped on the green cauldron, causing a shocking vibration. Everyone's scalps went numb as they quickly retreated. Many elders vomited mouthfuls of blood. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. In the distance, Lin Xian and the others were also affected. Fortunately, they had already retreated to an extremely far place before this. Otherwise, if they were any closer, the sound wave just now would have torn them apart and killed them directly. Kill! The Grand Evolution Sacred Leader waved his divine sword, and a peerless sword light descended from the sky. This sword could kill any invincible king. However, the purple archaic king was fearless. He slapped the sacred sword with his bare hands, and his palm collided with the sacred sword. Boom! 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 The sacred sword trembled in the sky, and the archaic king was sent flying backward, smashing through the void. He roared repeatedly. This scene shocked everyone, and made them happy at the same time. Great! The sacred weapon could suppress the other party. Use it quickly! In an instant, the Yin-Yang sect leader, sacred leader of myriad thunder, sacred leader of all beginnings, sacred leader of Tao Yi, sacred leader of Alcade, the Gu family, and the Yi family all used their sacred weapons. Terrifying auras surged into the sky and swept through the 9 heavens and 10 lands. However, the archaic king wasn't the only danger in the surroundings. Some of those archaic creatures had also used peerless treasures, but they couldn't contend with these sacred weapons. Moreover, there was also a divine tree that had existed for 100,000 years. His attack was also very terrifying. Therefore, in an instant, the experts in the nest of 10,000 dragons all supported the archaic king. The archaic king roared, and the ground cracked open. A purple spear transformed into a purple dragon that instantly appeared in the sky, and was grabbed by him. With a thrust of the spear, one of the grand elders of the 5 Elements Palace was killed. Pung! This spear pierced through the heart of the Grand Elder of the Five Elements Palace. The light of the five elements on his body quickly dissipated. The long spear vibrated and directly blasted the Grand Elder into pieces. Damn it! The Five Elements Sacred Leader roared as he activated the Five Elements Pearl, releasing the energy of the five elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. It formed a terrifying light that charged forward to resist the Archaic King. However, the Archaic King was too terrifying. Now that he had taken out a purple spear that was like a dragon, it was even more terrifying. Kill! An elder of the Yi family roared as he held a huge sky-splitting axe in his hand. He charged forward and fought with the Archaic King. Both of them were experts in close combat. Their physiques were strong, so their battle was earth-shattering. All the experts were shocked. The Yi family was indeed a clan of the ancients. Their physiques were too strong. Roar! The two of them exchanged more than 100 moves. The Archaic King suddenly roared as the purple light on his body soared into the sky. His aura erupted once again. The surrounding Tao of Dragon aura quickly surged into his body, and the long spear in his hand seemed to have come alive. Chapter 2774. The first spear sent the sky-splitting axe flying. The second spear pierced through the Yi family elder's forehead. Pft! The Yi family elder's head exploded, and his body fell to the ground. The Yi family experts roared crazily. One of their peerless elders was killed just like that. Even his soul power did not escape. Their eyes were bloodshot as they stared at the purple primordial king. The Yi family sacred leader snorted coldly as he activated the bronze cauldron and charged over. At the same time, the Gu family and Alcade realm experts made their moves. Li Xuanxian stood in the void, his body surrounded by a biting cold blade light. Another flying dagger appeared in his hand. As soon as the flying knife appeared, the surroundings were filled with wails and cries. There was even a rain of blood. The terrifying scene caused the surrounding primordial creatures to tremble, as if they were facing a great enemy. Many primordial creatures retreated. They had no choice. All the primordial creatures that were locked onto by Li Xuanxian felt a fatal sense of danger. Li Xuanxian did not attack these ordinary primordial creatures. His gaze was fixed on the primordial king, who was fighting with the Gu family and Yi family. Li Xuanxian raised his hand, and the flying knife at his fingertips flickered with a terrifying light. Even the purple primordial king in the distance raised his head, a terrifying light shooting out of his eyes. The other party's flying knife also threatened him. His body emitted tens of thousands of rays of light as his speed reached the extreme. He dodged in the sky while fighting the Yi family and Gu family sacred leaders at the same time. However, Li Xuanxian did not make a move immediately. He stood in the void, accumulating power and waiting for a sure-kill strike. This process was very long. As long as Li Xuanxian did not attack with his flying knife, all the primordial creatures felt their bodies go numb, as they felt a potential threat. This made them feel very uneasy. Buzz! Finally, Li Xuanxian found an opportunity to attack. With a wave of his finger, the flying knife between his fingers flew out. In an instant, wails and cries could be heard. The world lost its color as a terrifying sea of blood surged. This was a sure-kill attack. Many primordial creatures were scared to the ground. In the distance, the primordial king's hair stood on end. After his uneasiness and anger, a purple light shone from his body. The purple spear in his hand was like a dragon as it danced quickly. At the same time, his speed was extremely fast. Buzz, an earth-shattering sound rang out as the primordial king roared. Purple blood burst forth, piercing through the void. A bloody hole appeared on his shoulder. A flying knife had pierced through his body. It hit. How terrifying. He was actually able to injure an archaic king. Cries of alarm rang out, and the ancient creatures roared anxiously. On the human side, the holy sovereigns, sect masters, and elders were all shocked. As expected of Xiao Li's flying dagger, his strength was not in vain. It was too frightening. Probably no one would be able to dodge this flying dagger skill. Even a primordial king with such a powerful physique was hit. Everyone was shocked. The Yi family's patriarch and the others seized this opportunity to attack like crazy. In the distance, Li Zongxian's eyes flickered as he sighed in his heart. This attack was aimed at the center of his opponent's eyebrows. But in the end, he only managed to hit his opponent's shoulder. It could be said that it was a little different from what he had imagined. One had to admit that this primordial king was extremely terrifying. In the distance, Lin Xian and the others exclaimed when they saw this scene. This saber strike was too shocking and too fast. They didn't see it at all. They only saw Li Xuanxian waving his palm, and the primordial king was injured. Lin Xian's pupils constricted. He had seen the previous scene, through the heavenly secret divine eye. At this moment in his mind, he was still slowing down and recalling. It was indeed a peerless saber strike. It was really terrifying. He guessed that even if it were other holy sovereigns or sect masters, they probably wouldn't be able to dodge it. It was even possible that they would be killed in one move. Thinking of this, he sucked in a breath of cold air. Roar! The primordial king roared crazily, and the light on his body overflowed into the sky, quickly healing his wounds. His pair of cold eyes stared fixedly at Li Xuanxian. Buzz! His body turned into a bolt of lightning and rushed over quickly, wanting to kill the other party. Because a second flying dagger appeared in Li Zongxian's hand, he had to get rid of this hidden danger. In the blink of an eye, the primordial king arrived near Li Xuanxian and stabbed out with the long spear in his hand. Li Xuanxian was like a floating immortal, floating in the air. He dodged the shot by a hair's breadth. At the same time, the second flying dagger in his hand was sent out. With a bang, another bloody hole appeared on the primordial king's body. This bloody hole was very close to his heart. It had almost pierced through his heart. The crowd was even more astonished upon seeing this. The primordial king's face was also gloomy. With a wave of his hand, the purple long spear in his hand turned into a dragon and rushed out. It charged towards Li Xuanxian. Li Xuanxian dodged again, but this time, the purple dragon followed him closely, giving him no chance to send out a third flying dagger. Without the threat of Xiao Li's flying dagger, the primordial king once again went on a killing spree. Boom! The battle continued to erupt. Finally, a bolt of lightning flashed and the sacred lord of myriad thunder was torn in half. His soul was caught by the primordial king and directly destroyed. Between heaven and earth, a rain of blood fell. The wings of the thunder god danced in the sky, but it had lost its luster. Sacred Lord! Frantic shouts came one after another. The martial artists of the myriad thunder sacred ground had all gone crazy. The elders screamed crazily. They realized that their sacred leader had been killed. Lin Xian and the others felt their scalps go numb when they saw this scene. It's over. A sacred lord has fallen. This was an earth-shattering event. Although a sacred lord had been injured before, he hadn't been killed. These sacred lords were very powerful. Even if their bodies were split in half or torn into pieces, they could still recover. However, it was impossible now. The sacred lord of myriad thunder's soul had been directly destroyed. This could be said to be a fatal blow. There was no chance for him to revive. Sure enough, the sacred lord of myriad thunder's body fell from the sky, smashing the void and sinking the ground. This scene caused everyone to be alarmed. Those who had died before were all elders. But now, the sacred lord of myriad thunder had become the first sacred lord to die. This was absolutely shocking. If news of this spread, the entire true spirit world would probably be shaken. After all, a sacred lord was a true overlord. With a stomp of his foot, the entire world would tremble. But now, he had been mercilessly killed by the primordial king. Roar! The primordial king's body was covered in blood, but it wasn't his blood. It was the blood of the sacred lords and elders. At this moment, he was like a demonic god, looking around with a cold gaze. After killing the sacred lord of myriad thunder, he attacked again. Not good. Hurry up and leave. Many sacred grounds and sects quickly retreated. They opened their doors and prepared to teleport. Chapter 2775. No, they couldn't leave. How could this be? Some elders took out teleportation scrolls and activated the power of space to surround them, wanting to teleport them away. However, In an instant, another peerless array formation shattered the teleportation scrolls. Those who were about to leave fell out of the sky. Everyone's face was pale. Oh no! Damn it, we can't leave. They were really panicking. Previously, they were willing to give it their all because they had trump cards, Dow gates, and teleportation scrolls. They could leave at any time. But now, they realized that their escape route had been sealed. There was no way to escape. This scene caused the faces of these powerhouses to change completely. Lowly humans, you shall all die here. The primordial king's soul released a terrifying divine thought that swept in all directions. A monstrous killing intent was emitted from his eyes. In the next moment, he raised his hands high, and his aura surged. In the distance, an object flew over quickly. It was a giant dragon flying in the sky, and its body gradually turned into a dragon saber. It was held in the hands of the primordial king. Buzz! A terrifying power erupted, and those sacred leaders and sect masters retreated frantically. Oh no, a sage weapon! He's going to use a sage weapon. Hurry up and stop him. These people shouted frantically. The golden sword, the yin-yang mirror, the great Tao treasure bottle, the bronze cauldron. Everyone attacked crazily, especially the Yi family head, who activated the bronze cauldron with all his might. Boom! 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 In the sky, the terrifying dragon saber roared, and the terrifying sound completely spread out. The entire sky was boiling. Countless cracks appeared, and a saber light could kill any powerhouse. Everyone was horrified by this scene. Lin Xian and the others were facing a great enemy. They realized that their bodies could not move. The sacred leaders and sect masters in front of them also had ugly expressions. Hurry up and attack. Don't hold back. These sacred leaders and sect masters activated the sage weapons in their hands with all their might. The Yi family head gathered the elders of the Yi family. In front of them, the bronze cauldron floated up and down, flickering with a terrifying light. The Yi family head and the elders quickly performed hand seals and poured all their power into the bronze cauldron. Boom! The bronze cauldron erupted with an extremely terrifying power. It was like a demonic mountain that suppressed the surroundings. The entire sky began to tremble. How terrifying! It had the power of the celestial Dharch cauldron. An expert exclaimed. The yin-yang mirror erupted with a brilliant light that threatened to engulf the entire world. Golden holy swords, great Tao treasured vases, and sages' weapons soared into the sky. He wanted to suppress the dragon knife together. The primordial king was simply too powerful. Even though they were both sage weapons, the strength of the primordial king was still extremely strong. Thus, when he unleashed his saint's weapon, the power he unleashed was truly incomparably terrifying. It swept through everything. Although he was suppressed, he didn't fall behind. The sky-piercing god tree also launched an attack. Thousands of tree trunks fused with the surrounding Tao of dragon aura, turning into giant dragons that began to attack the sacred leaders and sect masters. Kill Li Xuanxian sent out the third flying knife, knocking away the purple long spear. Thus at the same time, he met up with the great guardian and the others. Together they formed a large seal. The four directions' great imprint continuously enlarged, releasing an endless aura. After receiving the support of so many unrivaled kings, the terrifying power became more and more intense, surging in all directions. A great battle broke out. So many sage weapons collided, erupting with unparalleled light. The entire world seemed to be about to be destroyed. Lin Xian and the others were sent flying by a violent force. They didn't know how many tens of thousands of miles they were sent flying. The weaker ones were killed by the energy. The stronger ones also vomited large mouthfuls of blood. Even the 9-yang divine body on Lin Xian's body was shattered, with many cracks appearing on it. On the other side, Yi Wudao and Dustless were the same. They were all injured. The dark red divine dragon, Morong Qingsheng, and Shen Jingxia were also injured. Fortunately, everyone finally stopped. However, before they could catch their breath, another wave of shocking energy erupted in front of them. It was even more terrifying than the previous energy shockwaves. Not good. The expressions of the saints and elites changed. Lin Xian didn't say a word and directly sent out the black earth. All the people around him were stored inside. Yi Wudao also sent out a replica of the Celestial Emperor Cauldron, the Alcade Saint, the Grand Xia Prince, Dustless, and the others all used their trump cards to protect the martial artists of their sacred grounds. In an instant these people were sent flying again. The battle this time was too tragic. Lin Xian and the others were sent flying for millions of miles. They had no idea how the battle was going. They could only see rays of apocalyptic divine light dancing in the sky, and the terrifying sound of thunder kept ringing. 5 days passed. 10 days passed. 20 days passed. The battle lasted for a month, and was still ongoing. This made Lin Xian, Yi Wudao, and the others stunned. Only now did they know how terrifying these sacred leaders and sect masters were. One had to know that such a shocking battle consumed a lot of energy, especially when he was using a saint weapon. His power was like flowing water, flowing away at an extremely fast speed. However, these sacred leaders and sect masters were actually able to fight for a month without weakening. It was truly terrifying. However, they weren't happy. Instead, their expressions became uglier. This was because they felt that more and more powerhouses in the nest of 10,000 dragons were reviving. In addition to the purple primordial king, another primordial king was revived on the 20th day. More primordial creatures were revived. A month later, a third primordial king was revived. The 3 primordial kings joined forces and shook the world. Fortunately, there were many sacred leaders and sect masters who came this time and brought many sage weapons. Otherwise, they would have been killed long ago. Even so, it was only a matter of time before they died. This was because up until now, 5 sacred leaders and sect masters had already died. The number of elders who died was uncountable. There was nothing they could do. 3 primordial kings, 100,000-year-old heavenly tree, and countless primordial creatures. Together with the peerless formation, these sacred leaders couldn't resist at all. It was already very difficult for them to fight until now. However, these were only 3 primordial kings. Who knew how many powerhouses were buried in the nest of 10,000 dragons? Moreover, there were definitely existences more terrifying than the primordial kings. If such a powerhouse came out, all of their sacred leaders and sect masters would be finished. Even the people of the remote antiquity families were no exception. Sure enough, after another 10 days, an extremely terrifying sage aura suddenly emerged from the depths of the nest of 10,000 dragons. Countless laws danced in the sky, turning into dragons. It's over. A true sage has revived. The expressions of the Yi family patriarch, Queen Mother of the West, Li Xuanxian, and the others completely changed. Although the previous 3 primordial kings were extremely terrifying, they didn't use any laws at all. They knew that these primordial kings weren't sages, but extremely terrifying invincible kings. Chapter 2776. Needless to say, a saint from the nest of 10,000 dragons was about to awaken. Then, they were definitely in danger. It's over. Are we all going to die here? The young disciples screamed, and the saints' faces turned pale. Even the sacred leaders and sect masters had died, let alone them. They were only at the periphery of the battle, and had not been affected. If the ancient creatures noticed them, they would not be able to resist. Lin Xian's face was also gloomy. He asked, "Ruffian dragon, is there any other way?" The dark red dragon shook its head. "No, unless we can break into the nest of 10,000 dragons and spread the news, so that the saints outside can take action. But we can't do that at all. Not to mention us. Even those sacred leaders and sect masters can't send the news out even with such powerful artifacts. I'm afraid we're really done for this time. But don't worry, kid. I can save your life no matter what." The dark red dragon's eyes lit up as it said this. "No matter what, I'm still a dragon. You have the great dragon sword soul. The 2 of us can use our dragon blood and dragon might to communicate with them. We can probably survive. As for the others, they're probably going to die here." "What? They're all going to die here?" Lin Xian was shocked. Peacock, Hui Dao, and the others behind him were even more stunned. Morong Qingqing, Shun Jingxiu, and the other great sex people were also pale, without a trace of blood. No way. Lin Xian's expression was also ugly. Although not all of the sacred leaders and sect masters had come this time, at least half of them had come. If these people were to fall here, it would truly be a shocking event. Other than during the ancient times of war, there had never been a time like this where half of the sacred leaders and sect masters had died. Could it be that the nest of 10,000 dragons is so terrifying? It hasn't even appeared, but it can already kill so many powerhouses? If it really came to the outside world, what kind of storm would it cause? I was too careless this time. The dark red dragon's expression was also ugly. They originally thought that this was the burial ground of dragons. Even if it was dangerous, they were already dead. So what if he was strong? However, to their surprise, those dragons were not dead at all. Instead, they were merely sleeping. Now they were resurrected one by one. How were they supposed to fight? Even if a saint were to come, it would not be enough. No, I can't do this. I can't just sit here and wait for death. Lin Xian shook his head. He had to think of a way to spread the news. It was too dangerous. Although the dark red divine dragon said that they might survive, it was only a possibility. The two of them weren't from the nest of 10,000 dragons at all, especially him. He was just a human, and he had endless secrets. How could these powerhouses of the nest of 10,000 dragons let him off? Moreover, there was also the safety of Morong Qingqing and Shunjingqiu. Therefore, Lin Xian did not intend to sit still and wait for death. He had to think of a way. What could he do? The dark red dragon shook its head. There's nothing we can do about it. None of our trump cards will work. Even our holy weapons won't work, let alone anything else. That might not necessarily be the case. Lin Xian's eyes lit up. Don't forget what I have. Are you saying that you want to use that thing? Impossible. Although that thing is powerful, your current strength is too weak. Moreover, this thing needs strength to revive. If you were a saint, it might be possible. But now it's impossible. The dark red divine dragon shook its head. He naturally knew what Lin Xian was talking about. What Lin Xian was talking about was naturally the great dragon sword soul in his body. The great dragon sword soul was an offensive saint technique with terrifying attack power. However, it had already lost too much power. Although Lin Xian had revived so much, it was still not enough. It was impossible to break through the nest of 10,000 dragons. What if it's not my own power? Lin Xian's eyes shone with a sharp light. There were so many Tao of dragon auras here, and so many powerhouses working together to stimulate the great dragon sword soul. They could definitely break through the nest of 10,000 dragons. As long as the nest of 10,000 dragons was broken, the people outside would definitely sense the information here. At that time we would be saved. Otherwise we would all die here. Kid, think about it carefully. If you do this, you will undoubtedly expose your secret. The dark red divine dragon stared at Lin Xian. Lin Xian said, "It's nothing, not for anything else, but for ourselves, for Qingqing, for Qiu'er, so be it. Alright, I can only give it a try." Lin Xian and the dark red divine dragon left the black earth. They appeared outside again. Seeing Lin Xian come out, Yi Wudao, Wuchen, the Alcate Saint, and the others were puzzled. What was going on? What was Lin Xian going to do? Just as they were about to ask, they saw Lin Xian walking forward. The nine-yang divine body bloomed with light, resisting the terrifying air waves. At the same time, he gathered his strength and let out a loud voice. "Everyone, help me. I have a way to break through the nest of 10,000 dragons." His voice was like thunder, spreading clearly in all directions. What? Nearby, Yi Wudao Wuchen, the Alcate Saint, the Prince of Great Xia, and the other saints were all stunned. They didn't dare to believe what Lin Xian said. The Alcate Saint's face darkened, and he snorted coldly. What kind of joke was this? So many saint lords and sect masters couldn't do anything. How could you? However, Lin Xian ignored him and transmitted his voice again. In front, the saint lords and sect masters who were fighting with the archaic king also heard this voice. They also frowned, and their faces were solemn. What was this Lin Xian doing? Although the other party was the master of Immortal Palace, at this juncture, the other party was too weak. Did he want to show off? He was too inexperienced. Li Xuanxian, the Great Protector, and the other powerhouses of Immortal Palace changed their expressions. Could it be that the palace master had a way? I don't know. The great protector shook his head, but with my understanding of the palace master, he wouldn't say anything. The palace master wouldn't speak out of thin air. Although everything he did was unimaginable, it was all successful in the end. Hearing this, Li Xuanxian was surprised. He nodded. All right, then I'll believe in the palace master. All powerhouses of Immortal Palace, follow me back and assist the palace master. With an order, all of Immortal Palace's powerhouses flew back and began to leave the battle. They gathered towards Lin Xian. Damn it! Were the people of Immortal Palace trying to escape? When the other Holy Land sects saw this scene, they were all furious. The Queen Mother, the Yi family's patriarch, the Gu family's patriarch, the Emperor of Great Xia, and the others looked at each other, their eyes flickering. What should they do? Palace Master Ling was a mysterious person. Perhaps he really had a way. The Queen Mother said in a deep voice. Indeed, young geniuses have endless secrets on them. Even I can't see through them. Perhaps he really has a way. These Saint Lords quickly transmitted their voices. At the same time, they also retreated frantically. Chapter 2777. What? Seeing this scene, the other sacred leaders and sect masters were all stunned. The supreme elders were also at a loss. What was going on? Could it be that the Queen Mother, the Yi family's patriarch, and the others really had to believe that Lin Xian? He was just a brat. Even if he was conferred the title of Middle Emperor, he was only of the younger generation. In such a war, the other party probably wouldn't even be able to withstand a single energy shockwave. What was there to talk about? Not to mention breaking into the nest of 10,000 dragons. Therefore, these sacred leaders and sect masters didn't believe it at all. Behind them, the saints and geniuses were also discussing. Lin Xian heaved a sigh of relief. He discovered that Li Xuanxian had arrived with the people from the Immortal Palace. The Queen Mother, the Yi family's patriarch, and the others also gathered here. As long as the sacred leaders believed in him, it would be fine. He believed that these people would definitely do their best to help him in the end. Li Xuanxian, the chief guardian, and the other powerhouses descended and protected Lin Xian. At the same time, Li Xuanxian asked, Hall Master, what can we do? Elder Li, chief guardian, I'm going to take out my trump card. You must protect me well. Lin Xian smiled and shrugged. Hearing this, the eyes of Li Xuanxian, the chief guardian, and the others lit up. As expected, their hall master still had a trump card. Li Xuanxian said, Don't worry, hall master. With us here, we definitely won't let anyone hurt you. Hopefully. Lin Xian sighed in his heart. He knew that he might be fine now, but what about in the future? After he went out, he would probably be in danger. After all, he was using the great dragon sword soul. Moreover, he was doing it in front of so many sacred leaders and living fossils. As long as one person discovered the great dragon sword soul, he would probably be targeted by countless powerhouses in the future. However, Lin Xian couldn't care less. Putting aside whether he wanted the lives of those sacred leaders and sect masters, he was doing this to save himself. Therefore, he had to give it his all. He would talk about the future in the future. Moreover, he guessed that after the revival of the nest of 10,000 dragons this time, the continent wouldn't be too peaceful in the future. Winds and clouds would surge, and perhaps a world-shaking battle would break out. At that time, it was hard to say if the sacred leaders and sect masters would care about him. Thinking of this, Lin Xian's eyes shone with a cold light. With a wave of his hands, the great dragon sword soul rushed out of his body. Buzzed, the great dragon sword soul transformed into a dragon-shaped sword shadow in front of him, exuding a mysterious aura. What is this? Li Xuanxian, great protector, and Immortal Palace's unmatched experts were all shocked. They fixed their eyes on the dragon-shaped sword shadow. Leaf Daudinier, the Grand Xia Crown Prince, the Alcate Sage Sun, and the others all felt their eyelids twitch. Their faces were also filled with shock as they watched. At this moment, countless eyes were fixed on the great dragon sword spirit. What was that? This wasn't the first time Lin Xian had used this sword shadow. They discussed animatedly. They had seen the dragon-shaped sword shadow before, but it was their first time seeing it at such a close distance. The green dragon-shaped sword shadow floated in the void. The dragon head and sword body were lifelike, and it carried a terrifying pressure. It was like a giant dragon. Especially Li Xuanxian and the others, they were extremely shocked. They felt as if this was a sleeping giant dragon that possessed endless energy. Once it fully erupted, it would kill them all. This sense of crisis was even more terrifying than when they faced the purple archaic king. What was that? They raised their heads and looked at Lin Xian. Lin Xian didn't say anything, but he urged the great dragon sword soul with all his strength. Roared a loud dragon roar sounded, and the great dragon sword soul erupted, turning into a giant dragon shadow that rushed into the sky. At the same time, the great dragon sword soul crazily absorbed the surrounding dragon aura, and a terrifying power erupted, sweeping in all directions. What a terrifying aura! These people were terrified. This aura was too sharp, and it surprised Yi Wudao, the Alcate sage, and the others. Even Li Xuanxian, the great guardian, and the others frowned. One had to know that Lin Xian was only a peerless almighty, but he could actually threaten them. It was too shocking. How many levels did he have to jump to be able to do that? He was definitely a peerless genius, and he really had the bearing of a young great emperor. This scene also attracted the attention of the sacred leaders and sect masters. However, those sacred leaders and sect masters frowned. Lin Xian was indeed impressive, but with his current strength, how could he possibly break through the nest of 10,000 dragons? What a fool's dream! They sneered disdainfully because this power couldn't compare to the sacred weapons in their hands. But even they couldn't break through the nest of 10,000 dragons with their sacred weapons. Li Xuanxian, the great guardian, and the others naturally knew this, so these invincible kings all looked at Lin Xian with doubt. Lin Xian said to them, "Everyone, attack and inject your power into the dragon sword soul." So that's how it works. Everyone was shocked, but Li Xuanxian and the others were extremely puzzled. They had used this method before, and that was to activate the sacred weapons in their hands together. For example, the clear sky seal in their hands was activated by a group of invincible kings. Could it be that the potential of the dragon sword soul was even more terrifying than a sacred weapon? They didn't know, but they still did as they were told. These invincible kings all unleashed their power and infused it into the dragon-shaped sword shadow in front of them. Lin Xian's eyes flashed. "Ruffian dragon, you should attack as well." At the same time, the dark red dragon, Shen Jingxiu, Morong Qingqing peacock, and the immortal palace's jade lake Zixia all attacked. Lin Xian turned his head and looked around. Brother Yi, the princes of the Grand Xia, attacked together. If you want to live, attack with all your strength. Otherwise, everyone will die here. Hearing this, the holy sons and chosen's expressions turned ugly. However, they still decided to give it a try. Because Yi Wudao and the others had already attacked, the remaining people also attacked. All of a sudden, these young disciples released their own power and poured it into the great dragon sword soul. With so many people's power, the dragon sword soul became even more powerful. Roar! A loud dragon roar resounded through the 9 heavens and 10 earths. The primordial creatures and the 3 primordial kings all frowned. They didn't attack again, but looked behind them in shock. What is that? Dragon! The primordial creatures cried out in alarm. They were all speaking in the primordial language. Although the sacred leaders and sect leaders couldn't understand it, they could still deduce it based on the fluctuations of their souls. The eyes of the 3 Archean kings flickered as they stared at the sword shadow in the distance with piercing cold light bursting from their eyes. They roared and wanted to charge over. Stop them! The Yi family's patriarch, the Queen Mother of the West, and the others roared. They quickly attacked and stopped the 3 primordial kings. Chapter 2778. What exactly is that kid's weapon? The other sacred leaders, sect masters, and elders were also extremely shocked. To be able to make a primordial king so irritable and uneasy, the weapon in the other party's hand must be very terrifying. Could it be even more terrifying than a sage's weapon? These people did not know. However, they still sent out waves of energy and poured it into the sword. The dragon sword soul's power also suddenly erupted when it received the energy. After all, it was originally an offensive saint technique, but it required a huge amount of energy. Now that it had so much energy to provide, its power also increased exponentially. Soon it reached the level of a sacred weapon. Waves of sharp sword chi made everyone tremble. The power of this sword shadow was actually not weaker than a sacred weapon. What exactly is it? Could it be a sacred weapon too? These people were extremely shocked. No, why do I feel that it has surpassed a sacred weapon? Heavens, what exactly is this? As more and more sacred leaders, sect masters, and grand elders poured their energy into the dragon sword soul, the dragon sword soul became even more dazzling. The great dragon sword soul emitted an even brighter light. At this moment, it was truly like a peerless divine sword. It could destroy everything. The bodies of those primordial creatures trembled, and they could not help but want to kneel down. This was because the peerless sword shadow in front of them, in addition to its terrifying aura, also emitted an extremely heavy dragon's might. This dragon's might made the three primordial kings' expressions change. Their bodies bloomed with light as they tried their best to resist. Buzz Lin Xian controlled the dragon sword soul and slashed out. Between heaven and earth, a sword light slashed forward. With a bang, a primordial king was sent flying. Bang! The primordial king was split in half, and blood flowed wildly, dyeing the sky red. Heavens! This scene made everyone exclaim. The sacred leaders and sect masters also felt their scalps go numb in shock. They had fought for so long, but they had not seriously injured a primordial king. The other party only swung a sword shadow and directly split a primordial king's body in half. This method was heaven-defying. For a moment, everyone looked at Lin Xian. Is this kid still human? Why do I feel that his trump card is more powerful than ours? Damn it, is he really just a young man? These people are crazy. Which one of these patriarchs had not lived for countless years and experienced countless battles? What kind of genius had they not seen before? However, at that moment, they looked at Lin Xian with disbelief. Could it be that this kid really had the disposition of a great emperor? Perhaps even a young great emperor was only at this level. What exactly was this dragon shadow? These people discussed animatedly. Of course, they didn't forget to continue pouring in energy. That was because they could tell that the great dragon sword soul required an enormous amount of energy. Aurora! These sacred leaders and sect masters had underestimated the great dragon sword soul. The archaic creature in front of him roared crazily. Its body fell down without healing. The other two Archean kings also roared, shaking the clouds in the sky. One of their companions, an archaic king, was killed by a single sword strike. Even his soul had been shattered. There was no way he could be revived. The astonishment caused by this scene was no less than the uproar caused by the death of sacred ruler 10,000 Lightning. These ancient life forms had all gone mad. Their eyes widened in disbelief. What was going on? Not to mention these archaic kings and ancient life forms. Even the sacred leaders, sect masters, and elders on the human side were stunned. Their minds were a little blank. At their level, especially the archaic kings, even if their bodies were shattered, even if there was only a drop of blood, they could probably be reborn. Unless their souls were directly destroyed, they couldn't be revived. Just like sacred ruler 10,000 Lightning from before, his soul was directly destroyed by the archaic Wang family. It was the same for the other sacred rulers. Now, could it be that the soul of this archaic king in front of them was also killed by a single sword strike? Heavens, what kind of sword chi was this? So terrifying. Everyone was terrified. Now they knew why Lin Xian said that there was a way to break the nest of 10,000 dragons. If they went crazy and desperately poured in their energy to push this dragon shadow with all their might, they might really be able to break the nest of 10,000 dragons. Thinking of this, these sacred leaders and sect masters were extremely excited. The elders of the sacred grounds were even more excited, as if they had been injected with stimulants. The Yi family patriarch, the Queen Mother of the West, and the others were even more surprised. This young man had too many secrets on him, especially the patriarchs of the Yi and Gu families. as well as the supreme elders, their eyes flickered. Why did it feel like this thing was the same as the legendary thing? No way. Are you talking about that thing? How many tens of thousands of years has it not appeared? How could he have it? That might not be the case. The nest of 10,000 dragons had not appeared for many years, but didn't it revive now? It wasn't impossible for this kid to have that thing. These sacred leaders and supreme elders discussed animatedly, with a strange light in their eyes. Even Li Xuanxian and the great guardian had a thought in their hearts. They thought of a legendary thing, but they weren't too sure. And now, they didn't have time to think too much because the archaic creatures in front of them had erupted again. The two archaic kings activated their sacred weapons crazily and charged over, wanting to intercept Lin Xian and the dragon-shaped sword shadow in the sky. Lin Xian took a deep breath, and his body shone brightly. He was like a peerless martial god as he waved the dragon-shaped sword shadow. The two swords slashed out, sending the two archaic kings flying. Wherever it passed, the bodies of the ancient creatures in the surroundings would explode and turn into a bloody mist, no longer existing. Nothing could stop his sword. Was this the power of the great dragon sword soul? How terrifying! Lin Xian was also extremely shocked. He knew that as long as he continued to cultivate, his strength would increase, and one day, he wouldn't need the power of these sacred leaders and sect masters. He would be able to erupt with such power alone. Thinking of this, he was extremely excited and eager to increase his cultivation strength. In the next moment, a sharp light appeared in his eyes as he raised his head to look at the endless void. In the sky, countless dragon-shaped auras rolled, turning into rolling thunderclouds that covered the sky. Lin Xian snorted coldly, waved the dragon-shaped sword shadow, and slashed upwards. With a slash of the sword, the heavens and the earth split. It collided with the peerless formation in the sky, forming a world-destroying light. Rumble! The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The earth shook, and the endless dragon veins in the surroundings collapsed. This attack could be said to be terrifying. However, Lin Xian frowned. It blocked. The peerless formation of the nest of 10,000 dragons actually blocked the attack of the great dragon sword soul. Heavens, this was too unbelievable. Damn it. What kind of formation did the nest of 10,000 dragons set up? It was actually so terrifying. The sacred leaders and elders all screamed, because they discovered that the power of the great dragon sword soul had actually surpassed that of a sacred weapon, and could easily kill an archaic king. But even so, they couldn't break the formation here. This really shocked them. No wonder they couldn't open it with the sacred weapons in their hands. Chapter 2779. Not enough. The power is still not enough. I have to quickly input more. Don't hold anything back. Lin Xian shouted once more. He knew that these sacred leaders and sect masters weren't pouring in 100% of their power. That was indeed the case. These sacred masters and sect masters were all holding back. Lin Xian floated in the air. Even though he was young, he was like an unparalleled king that circled the area. Everyone, could it be that you really want to die here? If he opened the nest of 10,000 dragons, everyone would have a way out. Otherwise, they would all be buried together. This time he didn't hold back. Even when facing these sacred leaders and sect masters, his voice was still cold. Hearing those words, the expressions of the sacred leaders and sect masters turned gloomy. When had they ever been lectured by a member of the younger generation in such a manner? However, what he said was indeed the truth. The Yi clan's clan master took a deep breath. Shi Wangmu nodded. The others did the same. Then let's go all out. Boom. Boom. Light blossomed from the bodies of these sacred leaders and sect masters, as they erupted with power once again. However, at this moment, a hole appeared in the distant sky, and dozens of divine lights flew over, directly killing some of the elders. Not good, they're attacking. Damn it, quickly input energy. The faces of the sacred lords changed. They didn't dare to delay any longer. They madly poured their energy into the dragon shadow. This was because they realized that the saint's aura in the distance was getting stronger and stronger. Clearly, the far ancient royal saint was about to awaken. If he really did awaken, Even if they had the dragon-shaped sword shadow, it would be difficult for them to resist. After all, a true saint was an existence that transcended the heavens and earth. Boom! Boom! The sacred leaders, sect masters, and grand elders were pouring energy into Yang-Chi like crazy. The great dragon sword spirit erupted once again. This time its power rose rapidly. Lin Xian found it difficult to swing it, but he still roared and swung it with all his might. At this moment, he seemed to have become one with the great dragon sword. With a swing of his sword, all the god sequence chains in the sky were sent flying. At the same time, he slashed at the peerless political law in the sky again. Today's shocking collision was accompanied by world-destroying divine light. This time, even the exceptional formation began to tremble, and cracks began to appear on it. Streaks of light burst forth one after another. This was great. The exceptional formation was broken. One more strike, and he would be able to break through. The sacred leaders and sect masters cried out crazily. The young disciples also cried out in alarm. This is great. As long as they could break it open, the experts outside would be able to come in. Then, they would be able to leave alive. Many people were moved to tears. In the distance, an even more terrifying creature appeared, erupting like a volcano. The entire sky trembled as it was enveloped by a fiery red light. Not good. That saint has probably already walked out of the frozen divine crystal. One of the Yaoguang sacred land's supreme elders' expression changed. Buzz, the expressions of these holy lords and grand elders changed drastically. This was because a figure had appeared in the void above. It was an indifferent person. This person had dragon scales on his body, and divine chains of laws surrounded him. He was like an immortal king, looking down on the common people. That aura caused everyone to tremble. The young disciples immediately knelt on the ground, unable to raise their heads. Even the elders were trembling in fear. Not good. Those sacred lords activated their sacred weapons with all their might to resist this pressure. A sage, he was a sage. A saint was looking down at them. Was he really going to die here today? Damn it, he was so close. He was so close to being able to split open the nest of 10,000 dragons. These people's faces were filled with despair. Lin Xian's pupils constricted, and his face turned pale without a trace of blood. A saint, this was a true saint. Even if he was staring at them, these people felt as if they had fallen into a 10,000-year-old ice cave. Their entire bodies tensed up, and they couldn't move at all. So what if he was a saint? Kill! Lin Xian roared angrily. He waved his sword and quickly charged over. The great dragon sword soul roared. It drew a terrifying dragon in the sky and slashed forward. When the saint in the sky saw this scene, he snorted coldly and struck out with his palm. A huge palm that blotted out the sky grabbed forward, as if it wanted to capture the great dragon sword soul. With a swoosh, it grabbed the great dragon sword soul. Like an immortal rope, it directly enveloped the great dragon sword soul. Great, he caught it! The primordial creatures cheered wildly. The primordial kings also sneered. They actually dared to fight against their saint. They really didn't know what was good for them. It's over. Have they been subdued? On the side of the human race, the faces of the saint lords and elders turned pale. Their faces were filled with despair. Some even wanted to risk their lives and use their saint weapons again. But at this moment, there was a change in front. A huge crack appeared in the sky. The terrifying palm suddenly collapsed. A dragon's roar sounded, and a terrifying sword light soared into the sky. It was slashed open. The great dragon sword soul was incomparably powerful. It slashed open the saint's palm. The huge palm in the sky turned into dragon energy and dissipated into thin air. Everyone was shocked by this scene. The Taiga kings were stunned. The human saint lords and sect masters were also in disbelief. This sword soul was too terrifying. Although it had gathered the power of all of them, it was still able to contend against the saints' nomological laws. It was really surprising. I'll definitely be able to break through the 10,000 dragons' suppression. Lin Xian roared. The saint lords and sect masters crazily poured their power into the sword soul. The sword soul continued to erupt, turning into countless dragon shadows that soared into the sky. With a boom this time, he directly smashed into the peerless array formation and broke it. Endless mountains rose and rolled in the Qinling Mountains. Many people in the surroundings gathered here. They knew that this was the nest of 10,000 dragons. These people continued to rush over. Of course, there were also cultivators from the great sects guarding this place to prevent anyone from destroying it. Suddenly, the entire Qinling Mountains trembled violently. The dragon veins within 1,000,000 miles rumbled. The endless mountains split open, the trees collapsed, and a terrifying crack appeared on the ground. The clouds in the sky were scattered. What was going on? What happened? Stop. The expressions of the cultivators from the great sects changed. Damn it! Could it be that some shocking change had happened in the nest of 10,000 dragons? They soared into the sky. The surrounding cultivators who had rushed over were so frightened that their faces turned pale. They retreated one after another. Just as they left, there was a loud roar. The ground split open, and a dragon vein was severed. A sword light shot out from the ground, turning into a huge dragon that roared in all directions. At this moment, everyone within a radius of millions of miles was sensed. After this dragon shadow, roars sounded one after another, turning into rolling thunderclouds that rushed into the sky and spread in all directions. Immediately after, everyone saw countless lights flickering in the huge crack, turning into Dao doors and spaces. They spread out in all directions. This was the aura of the great sections. Damn it! What exactly happened to the 10,000 dragons' annihilation? It actually made these great sects start to call for help? That's right, this dragon shadow was the great dragon sword soul. This time, Lin Xian controlled the great dragon sword soul, and finally pierced through the sky. He poked a hole in the nest of 10,000 dragons. Those great sects immediately sent out distress signals. However, their faces were incomparably pale, because the saint in the nest of 10,000 dragons had made his move again. Another palm stretched out, covering the sky and the earth. There were terrifying divine chains of order between the palm that pierced through the void. These were the laws of heaven and earth. In an instant, the void around them was frozen. They couldn't move, and their faces were filled with fear. Only Lin Xian and the great sects with holy weapons could still resist. The others were all trembling. Chapter 2780. However, at this moment, the void split open and a fist blasted over. It also carried the laws and the divine chains of order, as it collided with the saint's palm. Boom! 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 The divine chains of order danced in the sky as a terrifying saint's might surged. Everyone was sent flying. It was a saint had made a move. Great, our saint has arrived. On the side of the human race, these sacred leaders and sect masters were ecstatic. Sure enough, an old figure appeared in the sky again. This was the supreme saint of the great Xia dynasty. After he appeared, he immediately blocked the saint of the nest of 10,000 dragons. Moreover, his other palm waved, enveloping Lin Xian and all the surrounding human warriors, and sending them out of the nest of 10,000 dragons. It's too dangerous here. You guys go out first. The old voice sounded. Indeed, in a battle between saints, any random law would be able to kill them. It was indeed not suitable for them to watch the battle here. The world spun. Lin Xian and the others were wrapped by the palm, and instantly arrived high in the sky. They finally came out. Looking at the nest of 10,000 dragons below, they felt as if a lifetime had passed. They didn't expect that the exploration of the nest of 10,000 dragons this time would be so dangerous. These sacred leaders and sect masters almost all died inside. Thinking about it, they were really scared. Many people screamed crazily, feeling as if they had survived a disaster. Lin Xian also heaved a sigh of relief. Then their expressions changed drastically. Retreat, retreat quickly. These people retreated crazily. This was because another aura came from the nest of 10,000 dragons. A power that belonged to a saint swept through the surroundings. Needless to say, the two saints inside were fighting. Human saints. Do you really think that you can contend against our nest of 10,000 dragons? An angry roar sounded. Then, the three saints might in the nest of 10,000 dragons appeared. The saint of the nest of 10,000 dragons had awakened again. the expressions of the powerhouses of the Great Xia dynasty changed. Those elders were even more shocked. 2 against 1. Their elders were in danger. Don't worry. Our saints are coming soon. The people of the Yi and Gu families said one after another. Sure enough, the void split open and figures appeared one after another, quickly entering the nest of 10,000 dragons below. At this moment, heaven and earth were in an uproar. Everyone sensed a dense saint's might coming from underground. Oh heavens, the birth of a saint, is there going to be a big change? Something must have happened to the nest of 10,000 dragons. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many saints. The empires and sacred grounds in Zhengzhou were all talking about it. Their sect master and sacred master had brought people to the nest of 10,000 dragons. Something must have really happened. Not only the middle ground state, but the sacred grounds and sects of the other 4 continents also activated supreme spell formations. Either they were teleported over, or they were watching from afar using their immense magic power. At this moment, the gazes of everyone in the quintessential world were focused on the nest of 10,000 dragons. Ancestor, there's still an immortal divine herb in there. Many sacred leaders and sect masters quickly transmitted messages to the sages of their sacred grounds. If they could bring back the immortal god medicine, then they would really be rich. Several figures descended upon the nest of 10,000 dragons. There was also an even more terrifying aura awakening inside, making it so that no one could stay within a radius of 10 million miles. These warriors quickly rose into the air and flew into the distance. Lin Xian and the others used the teleportation platform to teleport away. Did the old palace master not come? Li Xuanxian and the others retreated to a safe distance and frowned. What was going on? They had sent out several messages, so the old palace master should have known. But why hadn't he appeared yet? Forget it, we don't have to care about such things. Thinking about the Yuhua immortal robe last time. Indeed, many people fought over the Yuhua immortal robe last time. In the end, Xia Zhuyo made a move at the critical moment and directly snatched it away. Perhaps the other party planned to do the same this time. Therefore, Lin Xian and the others all settled down and waited carefully. In front of them, sage might filled the air, and laws danced in the air. It was a scene of destruction. One could imagine that a shocking battle had definitely happened in the nest of 10,000 dragons. Half a day later, an earth-shattering roar resounded through the clouds. Countless voids shattered. Even thousands of miles away, Lin Xian and the others felt their blood boil. Many of them directly vomited blood. Damn it, what kind of roar was this? An even more terrifying existence had revived. They retreated in horror. In the nest of 10,000 dragons, the sages of the human race turned into streams of light and flashed out. They tore through the void and quickly left. There was even sage blood floating in the sky. A drop of sage blood crushed the heavens, turning into a monstrous sea of blood that enveloped a radius of millions of miles. Let's go. The sage of the Great Xia dynasty instantly appeared near the disciples of the Great Xia dynasty. With a wave of his hand, he took away all the people of the Great Xia dynasty. Apart from him, the Yi family, Gu family, Jade Lake, and the other sages who came all took their disciples away. When the others saw this scene, they were even more terrified. What happened? Why did these sages retreat? Why was there still sage blood floating in the sky? What kind of existence had revived? They didn't dare to imagine. However, they weren't stupid. They quickly tore through the void and opened a Dao gate to teleport. Let's go too. Li Xuanxian opened the scroll. The power of space wrapped Lin Xian and the others, and they disappeared into the void. Soon they returned to the immortal palace. All the holy lands and sects had retreated. After returning, they all inquired about the news. Elder, what exactly is going on? The Yi family patriarch, Yi Wudao, and the others stood there and asked. An old man stood in front of them. He was naturally the sage of the Yi family. His expression was incomparably solemn. Something big had happened. Recently, he warned the disciples of the family not to go out recklessly. Gather all the resources we have outside, and bring them all to the family. The family will enter a state of alert, and ensure that there are enough resources to activate the extreme Dao weapon, the Celestial Emperor Cauldron, at any time. What? Hearing this, the Yi family patriarch's eyes widened in disbelief. Yi Wudao and the other elders and disciples of the Yi family were all stunned. Activate the Celestial Emperor Cauldron at any time? That was an extreme Dao weapon. What exactly happened? It actually made a sage say such serious words. It wasn't just the Yi family. The Gu family, the Grand Xia dynasty, the Myriad Buddha temple, and the other sages all warned their disciples and descendants without exception. At the same time, they asked their Holy Land families to be on high alert and activate the Peerless Formation. Gather resources and prepare to activate the extreme Dao weapon at any time. The Yi family, the Gu family patriarch, the emperor of the Grand Xia dynasty, and the other sect masters frantically asked what had happened. Those sages shook their heads and sighed. Chaos was coming. The ancient royal family in the nest of 10,000 dragons might fully revive. Especially the dragons, they would definitely be the first to revive. At that time, it might be a scene of ancient times fighting for supremacy. The dragons and the ancient royal family would all revive. The sect masters were shocked. The disciples of the various Holy Land sects also went crazy. These were all legendary existences. Could it be that at this moment, they were really going to rule the world again? They had only read about the 10,000 feet race in ancient books. But after experiencing what happened in the nest of 10,000 dragons, they knew that these ancient races were definitely terrifying. They couldn't be underestimated. If they came out together, the world would be in chaos. Could it be that we really poked a hole in the sky? The Yi family patriarch's expression was ugly. The Queen Mother's expression was solemn. At this moment, all the sect masters and sect masters were filled with regret. Chapter 2781. When Lin Xian heard this news, he was also stunned. The 10,000 ancient races were about to fully revive. Perhaps the entire world would enter the ancient era's struggle for supremacy. This scene left him dazed. Immortal Palace, Li Xuanhuan, the chief protector, and the other elders and experts were also silent. The dark red divine dragon sucked in a cold breath. Damn, how could this be? Could it be that those things in the nest of 10,000 dragons were really going to fully revive? He was a dragon himself, so he naturally knew how shocking and threatening the revival of those other dragons would be. Moreover, this time, it seemed that not only the dragons, but the other ancient royal races were also going to revive. This was going to pierce through the heavens. The corner of Lin Xian's mouth twitched. Originally, he was overjoyed because he received the news of the nest of 10,000 dragons. Before entering the nest of 10,000 dragons, he believed that this would be a heaven-defying journey. He would obtain heaven-defying treasures. But who would have thought that such a change would happen? This time, it was probably not just his own matter, but the entire world. Li Xuanxian, the chief protector, and the others hurriedly looked for the old palace master, Xia Juyo. However, Xia Juyo didn't seem to be around. However, he did leave behind a scroll, which contained some instructions. Li Xuanxian and the others were shocked after reading it. Lin Xian took the scroll with a solemn expression. Soon, he gathered the experts of Immortal Palace and said in a deep voice, "From today onwards, Immortal Palace will enter a state of war alert. Gather all the resources we can use and ensure that all the formations are unimpeded and can be activated at any time. At the same time, summon our disciples outside." Lin Xian did the same as the other great sects of the Holy Lands. They knew that the true danger was about to arrive. Those factions and families that did not enter the nest of 10,000 dragons were extremely surprised. They all asked what exactly happened in the nest of 10,000 dragons. They inquired from many sides. When they learned that countless disciples had died in the nest of 10,000 dragons, and even the elders and holy lords had fallen one after another, these people were stunned. What? Even the holy lords had fallen? Heavens, what exactly happened? These people were extremely shocked. The leader of the Sacred Master sect was such a terrifying existence, but he had actually fallen in the nest of 10,000 dragons. More than one of them. According to the statistics, a total of 9 sacred leaders and sect leaders had died, and more than 50 elders had died. It could be said that all the sacred grounds and sects had suffered heavy losses. This news shocked the entire world. So many terrifying powerhouses had fallen in the nest of 10,000 dragons. It was truly shocking. However, what shocked and frightened them even more was yet to come. At least 6 sages had descended upon the nest of 10,000 dragons and fought with the supreme existences within. In the end, they had fled in panic. Furthermore, many sacred grounds and sects had already begun to seal their mountains. This scene terrified all the martial artists in the world. Saints were godlike existences. They had transcended the heavens and earth and could use the power of the laws of nature. Such terrifying existences, a total of 6 of them, were actually scared away by the things in the nest of 10,000 dragons. What exactly was in the nest of 10,000 dragons? It was even rumored that a saint had been injured, and his saint blood had dyed the sky red. In the end, news spread from the clan of the ancients. The world was shocked. The 10,000 archaic clans were reviving. These words were like a mountain that pressed down on everyone's hearts, making them unable to breathe. These powerful families in the world were extremely shocked. They knew what these words meant. For a moment, these people's faces were filled with despair. Although the other martial artists didn't quite understand, they knew after asking around a little. The existences in the nest of 10,000 dragons had all existed for countless years. In fact, they might even be from an era even older than the ancient times. These were all powerful races that were extremely terrifying. At this moment, they were about to revive in their world and compete with the human race. This was definitely a disaster. No wonder those sacred grounds and sects wanted to seal their mountains. Following this, the people would probably be plunged into misery and suffering. The world wailed and everyone was in despair. Just as everyone in the true spirit world was in a state of panic, the atmosphere in the nest of 10,000 dragons was incomparably solemn. In the nest of 10,000 dragons, countless auras of the Tao of Dragons surged as fiend godlike figures stood there. Ever since the 6 great sage people had left, the powerhouses inside had all broken out of the ground from the divine crystals. These were all primordial creatures of all shapes and sizes. Some were in human form, while others were in the form of demonic beasts. They all emitted an incomparably terrifying aura. At this moment, the few primordial kings from before stood very respectfully. In front of them, there were a few figures surrounded by laws. They were the saints of their primordial royal families. In front of these saints, there was a piece of divine crystal that was about 2 meters tall. Sealed within the divine crystal was an old man. He was extremely old. The pair of dragon horns on his head were about to fall off. This old man wasn't completely sealed within the divine crystal. Half of his right arm stretched out from the divine crystal. The aura he emitted was as deep as the sea. It was extremely terrifying. Even the few saints in front of him were extremely respectful towards the old man. The terrifying old man had his back to everyone. His gaze was fixed on the golden egg on the 5-colored altar in front of him. This golden egg was even more resplendent at this moment. The Tao patterns on it were like swimming dragons that began to swim. Suddenly, it absorbed all the surrounding aura of the Tao of Dragon. The aura of the Tao of Dragon turned into giant dragons that all entered the golden dragon egg. This process lasted for 49 days. Finally, the golden dragon egg cracked open from the middle with a crack. Throughout the entire process, all the primordial creatures, primordial kings, saints, and terrifying old men in the nest of 10,000 dragons waited with rapt attention. For 49 days, no one moved, no one said a word. When they saw the golden dragon egg in front of them crack open, their eyes erupted with excitement. One by one, they stretched their heads out and looked forward. They were both expectant and nervous. The golden dragon egg cracked open, and a golden claw stretched out from inside. Following that, a golden figure appeared. It was a dragon, a golden dragon. Although it wasn't big, its body emitted a monstrous dragon's might. It roared towards the sky, and its tender voice rolled out. Buzz, the terrifying old man, and a few saints took the lead and knelt down on one knee. Greetings, Dragon Prince. Greetings, Dragon Prince. The primordial kings and primordial creatures behind them all knelt on the ground. At this moment, countless people were extremely respectful. Even those saints had faces full of piety, because this was the Dragon Prince, the descendant left behind by their Lord Dragon Emperor. The Dragon Emperor was the supreme existence among dragons. He had reached the peak and ruled over all races. That ancient era was truly incomparably terrifying. His status was equivalent to that of a great emperor on the human side. And this Dragon Prince was the son of the Dragon Emperor, which was equivalent to the son of a great emperor. One could imagine how precious his identity was. No wonder these saints of the nest of 10,000 dragons had to kneel down. Chapter 2782. Roar. The little golden dragon looked at the people kneeling on the ground and let out a series of roars. Then, he began to devour the golden eggshell and crazily absorbed the surrounding Tao of dragon aura. His body was rapidly growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Buzz, buzz, buzz in front of him. The terrifying old man with half of his body sealed waved his palm and shot out streams of laws. They danced in the sky, forming a super array formation. The surrounding Tao of dragon aura quickly gathered and completely enveloped the little golden dragon. Then he stood up, and the few saints beside him also stood up. As for the remaining primordial kings and primordial creatures, they were still kneeling on the ground. The old man with half of his body sealed was surrounded by light, illuminating a corner of the sky. If someone was here, they would definitely scream, because in the surrounding caves and walls, there were still nerves floating. Some of them were extremely huge, and the sealed old man was extremely old. Those old men's eyes were tightly shut, and they were still in a deep sleep. Obviously, these were all extremely terrifying supreme existences. Not all of them had awakened. The nest of 10,000 dragons was too big. Countless powerhouses were sleeping, and it was impossible for them all to awaken. Perhaps they would awaken bit by bit, or perhaps these super powerhouses would be preserved as a foundation. Only when the nest of 10,000 dragons, or the Dragon Prince, were in danger, would these super powerhouses be revived. After all, these terrifying powerhouses were already very old, and had reached the verge of their lifespans drying up. Once they were revived, it would be very difficult for them to be sealed by the divine crystals again. Therefore their revival was especially important. They had to grasp the opportunity well. The old man with half of his body sealed looked around disdainfully. He said in a low voice, "From today onwards, the 10,000 dragons court will revive. We will appear on the ground again and rule the world. We will rule the world." Those humans were completely ants. They had been taken advantage of for so many years. It was time for them to scram to the side. A cold voice sounded. The primordial creatures roared crazily. They raised their arms and shouted loudly. Waves of killing intent spread out. Then, the old man with half of his body sealed changed the topic. "We were revived in this era. There are other reasons. We have deduced that this might be the golden age that Lord Dragon Emperor mentioned. The crisis has passed. This time, the immortal gate might open. This is the only hope of becoming an immortal and entering the immortal world. We will use the power of the entire clan to make the Dragon Prince the new Dragon Emperor, and help him successfully enter the immortal sect. He would become the one and only immortal in the world." The words of the dragons echoed in the surroundings like thunder. Immortal ascension. The goal of the ancestral patriarch was to help the Dragon Prince become an immortal. If the other martial artists of the human race knew about this, they would definitely be stunned. This idea was simply too heaven-defying. After all, everyone's goal in the true spirit world was to become a great Lo. The great emperor, on the other hand, had only just begun to consider the problem of becoming an immortal. Now that the patriarch had such thoughts, he had to admit that the dragons were truly terrifying. "Don't worry, patriarch. We will do our best to help the crown prince ascend the immortal gate." Behind him, the saints, Archean kings, and countless ancient creatures called out respectfully, "Primordium ancient mine." This was also a forbidden area of the human race. All of the human race's crystals had been transported here from the primeval ancient mine and its surroundings. From there, all kinds of seeker spirit masters cut out heavenly materials and earthly treasures. There were even ancient medicines, but no one dared to go deep. This was because more than one sect master had gone in. But in the end, they didn't even cause a ripple and never came out again. This was a place that even saints would take a detour when they saw it. At this moment, in the depths of the primeval ancient mine, there were actually huge divine realms floating. Inside those deity crystals, there were also figures sealed in ice. It was actually the nest of an archaic dynasty. The dragons of the nest of 10,000 dragons have already awakened. It's time for us to appear. Good. Let our descendants. Let us reign supreme again. Those old figures let out cold voices. Around them, there were even more ancient creatures. At this moment, they were also awakening one by one. Death Demon Abyss. One of the 5 forbidden areas of the true spirit world. This was an invincible abyss. It was incomparably dark, and no one knew where it connected to. A peerless expert had once deduced that this place seemed to be connected to the real hell. Therefore, this was also a forbidden area. Ordinary humans didn't dare to come here. Even saints didn't dare to rashly enter. At this moment, a few ancient creatures actually crawled out of the Death Demon Abyss. They had blue skin, long fangs, and terrifying scales. Roar. As soon as they crawled out, they roared at the sky, their voices shattering the 9 heavens. Behind them, more and more ancient beasts ran out. Some of them were covered in blood, as if they had really crawled out of hell. They were extremely ferocious and terrifying. Fortunately, there were no signs of human habitation within a radius of millions of miles, because no one dared to be here. Otherwise, they would definitely faint from fright. Void Sea. Located in the extreme north of the northern plains, no one could fight their way here. Moreover, no one dared to come here, because this was also one of the 5 forbidden areas of the true spirit world. Meanwhile, in the Sea of Oblivion, countless chi of oblivion rumbled as one after another ancient beasts charged out from it. The first few were extremely terrifying. Apart from these forbidden areas, there were also ancient creatures in other places. Clearly, the 10,000 ancient races that had been hibernating in the true spirit world had awakened one after another. No one knew if it was because of the awakening of the dragons of the nest of 10,000 dragons, or if it was because of some other reason. But without exception, these ancient creatures had really come to life. They would definitely rule the world. Sure enough, although some places were forbidden areas, and ordinary humans didn't dare to enter, but more and more ancient creatures were awakening, and the commotion and impact were too great. Finally, someone saw ancient creatures jumping in the mountains with their own eyes. This news spread throughout the 5 continents of the true spirit world. For a moment, the world was in an uproar again. The great sects of the sacred lands and the ancient families were also shocked. What was going on? Why were there ancient creatures in other places apart from the nest of 10,000 dragons? Moreover, they were all revived. Damn it, the 10,000 ancient races. It's the 10,000 ancient races. A living fossil screamed miserably. Was the era of the ancient era of hegemony really going to reappear? That was an era that only existed in legends, an era that had experienced countless years, and no one had any impression of it. However, the records in those ancient books shocked them greatly. The 10,000 ancient races. Each race was extremely powerful and terrifying. Back then, the human race was considered a relatively weak race among the 10,000 ancient races. Later, a few great emperors appeared one after another, turning the tide and allowing the human race to reach the peak. But now, the great emperor of the human race had already vanished into thin air, and a new great emperor had not been born. In fact, it had been tens of thousands of years. There was no new great emperor. Chapter 2783. Lin Xian also received the news. Everyone in the immortal palace was dumbfounded. The dark red divine dragon was also anxious. It's over. Kid, the era of the ancient era's hegemony is really coming. Lin Xian also took a deep breath, his eyes flickering. Although he had never seen the true 10,000 ancient races and the ancient era's hegemony, He could guess from the situation in the nest of 10,000 dragons that the situation was definitely serious. Li Xuanxian, the chief guardian, and the others also had ugly expressions. They had been trying to contact the old palace master, but the old palace master hadn't returned yet. This made them even more anxious. What was going on? The old palace master had left? Could it be that he had gone to the nest of 10,000 dragons to snatch the immortal divine herb? They didn't know, and it seemed that there was no news of another battle in the nest of 10,000 dragons. What worried them even more was that if the old palace master went down and entered the nest of 10,000 dragons, he would be in danger, because there was more than one sage in the nest of 10,000 dragons. For a moment, they were worried for Xiaojiu. Lin Xian asked, "Ruffian dragon, how much do you know about the 10,000 ancient races?" To be honest, he only knew about the dragons of the nest of 10,000 dragons, the war race, and the celestial race. It was said that back then, they were also terrifying existences among the 10,000 ancient races. They were even conferred the title of royal race. The 10,000 ancient races was just a general term that referred to all races and living beings. The human race was one of them. Among them, the powerful races were conferred the title of royal race. It was said that back then, the top 100 races of the 10,000 ancient races were all conferred the title of royal race. These royal races were powerful, and what was even more terrifying was that their bloodline talent was astonishing. Among the 100 immemorial royal families, there were 10 top immemorial royal families. They were above all the other races, and were extremely terrifying. Of course, those races that had produced great emperors were conferred the title of royal race. Compared to the other royal races, they had even more terrifying bloodlines and inheritances. Moreover, these royal races also had a large number of followers. Some had even subdued many races. Even the royal races had to rely on them. It could be said that their strength was extremely terrifying. The dragons of the nest of 10,000 dragons were one of the royal families. Back then, the dragon monarch was a figure who startled the heavens and earth, and made ghosts and gods weep. But don't worry, no matter how terrifying it is, it will disappear in the passage of time. Therefore, I speculate that there are no great emperors or sovereigns among these ancient royal and sovereign clans. Lin Xian nodded. He now had a general understanding of the ancient royal family. However, Li Xuanxian and the head protector had ugly expressions on their faces. Even if there aren't any emperors or sovereigns among the primeval royal clans and sovereigns, so what? The human race doesn't have them either. Furthermore, these ancient royal families had been passed down from ancient times. Their foundations and bloodlines were simply too powerful, far surpassing the current era. If they really fought, it would be difficult for the human race to resist. Then I don't know. The dark red dragon shrugged. However, he said, "Don't be too pessimistic. The human race isn't as weak as you think. After all, after so many years of development, the human race controlled more than 70% of the true spirit world's territory. Moreover, there were many great emperor clans and remote antiquity clans among the human race. There were even a few extreme weapons left in the world. The foundations of those remote antiquity clans are definitely beyond your imagination. It's just that they don't usually show it. Once they encounter a life and death crisis, they will definitely be heaven-defying and shocking. Just wait and see. When the time comes, perhaps those extreme weapons will also be used. However, the people will definitely be plunged into misery and suffering. It's just that I don't know how far the human race can go. What will happen? Lin Xian asked doubtfully. Do they have enmity with the human race? Not really, but think about it. When they were still awake, the human race was still a weak race. And they were the rulers of the world. When they woke up, the ants in their eyes directly controlled the entire world. How could these ancient royal families be willing to accept this? They would definitely fight for the control of the world. After all, although they were royal clans and sovereigns, they had a strong foundation. However, they still needed to develop. To develop, they needed large amounts of spirit veins, dragon veins, divine crystals, cultivation methods, and spiritual herbs. These all needed endless territory to nurture. Therefore, when the time came, there would definitely be a lot of battles. The human race's remote antiquity clans and great sects had experienced so many tens of thousands of years of inheritance. How could they give up their territory? Therefore, battles were unavoidable. It's just that I don't know how many of the 10,000 ancient races have awakened this time. How many royal clans are there? Are there other sovereigns? It's better to send our people to investigate, Lin Xian ordered, preparing to let Immortal Palace's cultivators go out to investigate the situation. At the very least, they had to understand the movements of the 10,000 ancient races. However, before they could send anyone out, an elder of Immortal Palace hurriedly flew over. Palace Master, something bad has happened. What's wrong? Lin Xian asked with a frown. Li Xuanxian and the Great Guardian were even more nervous. Was there news of the old Palace Master? They were very worried about the old Palace Master's safety. The elder of Immortal Palace shook his head. It wasn't the old Palace Master, but an ancient creature. Ancient creature? What's going on? Have they launched an attack? The dark red dragon at the side also asked. Could it be that they moved so quickly and started a war as soon as they woke up? That's not it. The elder shook his head and hurriedly said, an ancient creature came to our Immortal Palace and said that he wants to see the Palace Master. Why? An ancient creature came to our Immortal Palace. Hearing this, Lin Xian was stunned. The dark red dragon was also stunned. Li Xuanxian, the great custodian, and the rest of the custodians were stunned. What was going on? Why did an ancient creature come to their door? Moreover, the other party actually knew the exact location of their Immortal Palace. This was really unbelievable. One had to know that there were many array formations outside their Immortal Palace. The other holy lands and great sects might not be able to find their exact location. However, an ancient creature actually came to find them. It was really unbelievable. Was this the strength of the 10,000 ancient races? It was really too terrifying. What was he doing here? Lin Xian asked in a deep voice. He was very puzzled. Why would an ancient creature come to them for no reason? Could it be that the people of the nest of 10,000 dragons came to take revenge? However, if they were really from the nest of 10,000 dragons, they should have directly attacked. He was very puzzled. The elder quickly said, I don't know. He said that he has something to see the Palace Master. He wants to see me? Lin Xian was even more puzzled. He didn't know what ancient creature it was. However, he still said, all right, let him in. However, he had to be careful and see if it was just him. Were there other ancient creatures hiding behind him? If there were other ambushes, he would directly use the array formations to kill him. Lin Xian suspected that this might be the enemy's trap. Therefore, he gave a few instructions. Chapter 2784. The Immortal Palace Elder led a group of martial artists to the entrance of Immortal Palace. They used all kinds of secret techniques to investigate, and found that there was only one figure in front of them. There were no other ambushes, which made them secretly heave a sigh of relief. The Immortal Palace Elder waved the small flag in his hand. The array formation on both sides rumbled and opened up a path. Buzz! He looked at the figure in front of him. Follow me. The figure stood with his hands behind his back. He raised his head to the sky and looked very arrogant. Seeing this scene, he nodded coldly. His figure swayed and directly entered the array formation. Lin Xian, the dark red divine dragon, Li Xuanxian, the great guardian, and the others came to the starry hall. Lin Xian sat high on the hall master's seat. His expression was solemn as he waited silently. Not long after, the Immortal Palace Elder came in. Hall Master, someone is here. Before he could finish speaking, a figure appeared in the hall. This scene made everyone frown. How arrogant and rude. How dare he come to their Immortal Palace? Lin Xian also frowned. He narrowed his eyes and looked forward. In front of him was a silver figure. This person had a tall appearance. He was more than twice the size of an ordinary human martial artist. Silver lightning flickered on his body. Not only that, his skin was silver as if it was made of silver. What kind of race was this? Lin Xian was puzzled. The dark red divine dragon at the side said, Kid, he's from the Silver Lightning race. Although the Silver Lightning race was not an ancient royal race, they were still a very powerful race, especially the silver lightning on their bodies. It was said that they were born with it. It was very terrifying. It carried a powerful destructive aura. Silver Lightning race. Su Chen nodded silently. As expected, the person was like his name. The other party's body was covered in fine silver lightning that kept swimming. It carried a terrifying power. Even he was surprised by this power. Why are you looking for me? Lin Xian asked in a deep voice. The ancient creature of the Silver Lightning race opened his mouth and said a string of words. However, Lin Xian frowned. Li Xuanxian, the Great Guardian, and the others at the side also had gloomy expressions. They discovered that they were simply unable to understand what the other party was saying. Damn it, what did this guy say? Lin Xian was stunned. Could it be that these ancient life forms didn't know how to speak? If you don't understand, use your soul to communicate. Lin Xian snorted coldly. Although their languages were different, whether it was the human race, the Silver Lightning race, or other ancient creatures, their souls were always connected. Therefore, soul communication could be said to be the simplest and most direct method. Even if there was a language barrier, it shouldn't be too big of an obstacle. Up ahead, the Silver Lightning race cultivator sneered. How could he not understand this? Your human race has really declined. You don't even know the primordial immortal language? His voice was filled with disdain. Courting death. How dare you? The surrounding elders were furious. The other party came to their immortal palace alone, yet dared to act so insolently, not placing them in his eyes at all? The expressions of the protector and the others also darkened as a terrifying aura surged from their bodies. However, that Silver Lightning clan's expert was not afraid at all. He still stood with his hands behind his back, looking up at the sky with a look of supremacy. Facing the terrifying pressure around him, he sneered. Silver lightning circled around his body, forming 3 silver lightning halos that enveloped his body. Lin Xian waved his hand to stop these elders. Just now, the dark red divine dragon had already explained to him that the other party was speaking the primordial immortal language, which was the common language of the 10,000 immemorial races. This language was regarded as the immortal language by the 10,000 immemorial races at that time. Rumor had it that an immortal had descended to the mortal world to teach them this language. It could be said to be incomparably sacred. However, later on, as the 10,000 immemorial races fell into a deep slumber, the human race developed their own language. Gradually, no one spoke the primordial immortal language anymore. Therefore, these people now didn't know the primordial immortal language at all. Of course, the dark red divine dragon was an exception. He knew the dragon language. The dragon language was also one of the primordial immortal languages, and it was the most noble one. Therefore, he naturally understood what the other party was saying. After learning this, Lin Xian said coldly, it was no longer the primordial immortal era, nor was it the time when the 10,000 immemorial races ruled the world. Now the human race was prosperous and ruled the world. What we are speaking is naturally the human race's language. If you have something to say to me, just speak the human race's language. Lin Xian wouldn't speak the primordial immortal language in front of the other party. This was a matter of standpoint. Even if he understood, he wouldn't say it. The human race had really declined. Moreover, they had actually abandoned the immortals. All of you will be punished by destruction, the Silver Electric Race powerhouse said coldly. This time, his words were all understood by the surrounding people. This was because the other party was speaking the same language as Lin Xian, and the others, the human race's language. However, Lin Xian, Li Xuanxian, and the others' expressions were very ugly. The other party was still so arrogant. He didn't put them, or even the entire human race in his eyes at all. If there was anything, just say it directly. Lin Xian wasn't willing to fight this kind of war of words with the other party. He was very curious now. What exactly was the other party here for? In front, the Silver Electric Race powerhouse looked down at Lin Xian and said coldly, you are the master of the Immortal Palace. That's right, I am. Lin Xian nodded coldly. The other party's arrogant attitude really made him unhappy. However, he still waited patiently and prepared to listen to the end. The master of the Immortal Palace was actually a young brat? The Silver Electric Race powerhouse sneered again. Listen carefully. The Silver Electric Race has already recovered and is about to rule the world. Now, with the place where the Silver Electric Race has recovered as the center, no human is allowed to take a single step within a radius of 5 million miles. Those who violate this rule will be killed without mercy. The cold voice resounded in all directions and reverberated in the main hall. The pupils of Li Xuanxian, the Great Guardian, and the others shrank. The other elders were also in an uproar. Lin Xian's face completely darkened. The other party was actually here to threaten and warn them. This really surprised them. These people's expressions were very ugly. When had the Immortal Palace been threatened and warned like this? Moreover, it was a race that had just awakened. So what if the other party was from the 10,000 ancient races? The Immortal Palace was not to be trifled with. Therefore, Lin Xian snorted coldly. No human is allowed to take a single step within a radius of 5 million miles? Those who violate this rule will be killed without mercy? What an arrogant attitude. If my guess is right, the place where you have recovered should be under the control of the Immortal Palace. You actually dare to say such words in the territory of the Immortal Palace. You really don't know what's good for you. Who do you think you are? An immortal who has descended to the mortal world? How dare you threaten me? At the end of his words, an incomparably terrifying aura rose from Lin Xian's body. He guessed right. The place where the Silver Electric Race had recovered was indeed under the control of the Immortal Palace. Although the distance from the headquarters of the Immortal Palace was very far, the Immortal Palace was in existence at the level of a holy land and controlled countless territories. Chapter 2785. The Silver Lightning Race powerhouse's expression darkened when he heard this. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he spoke coldly. Kid, you'd better think carefully. Do you want to go against the Silver Lightning Race? What are the consequences of going against us? Don't think that you're a sacred land or the master of Immortal Palace. In front of the Silver Lightning Race, you're nothing. The 10,000 ancient races are about to revive and rule the world. The good days of the human race are about to come to an end. When the time comes, you'll all become prisoners. So today, I'm not here to discuss with you. I'm here to give you an order. If you dare to take a step within a radius of 500 miles, it'll destroy Immortal Palace. Arrogant, too arrogant. An ancient creature dared to challenge the entire Immortal Palace? Who gave him the courage? Li Xuanxian, the chief protector, and the others had gloomy expressions. They wanted nothing more than to slap the other party to death. But to be honest, they really didn't dare. The 10,000 ancient races were connected. Some of them had a good relationship with each other. Therefore, attacking one race was equivalent to attacking many other races. There were even some who were inextricably linked to the ancient royal clan. Therefore, unless they had no other choice, they really didn't want to start a war with the 10,000 ancient races. However, the other party was too arrogant. These people were filled with killing intent. The atmosphere in the entire hall was very solemn. Countless cracks even appeared in the void. Damn, how dare you threaten us? Do you want to die? The dark red divine dragon jumped up and flew into the sky. He looked ahead coldly. Do you believe that I want roast you and eat you? Who do you think you are? How dare a snake be so arrogant in front of me? The Silver Lightning Race powerhouse sneered. But in the next moment, he screamed and fear appeared in his eyes. That was because he felt an extremely powerful pressure and monstrous blood surging out from the other party's body. Dragons! You're a dragon! He was too shocked. There was nothing he could do. The dragons were the royal races of the 10,000 ancient races. Their status and identity were much higher than the Silver Lightning races. In front of the Dragon Pearl, the Silver Lightning Race powerhouse didn't dare to be impudent at all. But soon he frowned. No, the dragons were all in the nest of 10,000 dragons and hadn't appeared yet. And even if they appeared, why would they be with humans? Damn it, who the hell are you? He was truly astonished. He didn't believe that the dignified far ancient imperial dragons would walk together with humans. This was simply impossible. Is this Emperor's matter something an ant like you can inquire about? The dark red divine dragon floated above and looked down at the other party, its voice filled with disdain. If you dare to be arrogant in front of me again, this Emperor will slap you to death. The Silver Electric Race's expert had an ugly expression on his face. However, the dragon might and dragon blood on Lin Fan's body were truly oppressing his soul. Therefore, he didn't dare to be presumptuous anymore. He had to hurry back and find out what was going on. Could it be that the nest of 10,000 dragons had made a new move? In the next moment, he looked at Lin Xian and said coldly, "Brat, I've already delivered the message. I hope you will abide by it, and we can still live in peace." Otherwise, he didn't continue, but his meaning was clear. Anyone who dared to provoke them would be declaring war on the Silver Lightning race. This was not something a sacred ground or a major sect could bear. Even if Immortal Palace was powerful, it still couldn't endure it. At this point, he snorted coldly and turned around to leave. Looking at the other party's arrogant figure, the surrounding Immortal Palace cultivators gritted their teeth, but there was nothing they could do. Many people were so angry that they were trembling. Damn it, they really wanted to attack and kill him with a slap. Lin Xian's eyes were also shining with a terrifying light. "Wait, did I say you could leave?" In front of him, the Silver Electric Race's expert stiffened, and a hint of anger appeared in his eyes. He suddenly turned his head. "Brat, you dare to stop me? So what if you have a dragon by your side? He might not even be from the nest of 10,000 dragons." The Silver Electric Race's expert was also furious. Their Silver Electric Race was an extremely powerful race among the 10,000 ancient races. They were born with divine lightning, and the other 10,000 ancient races didn't dare to be presumptuous towards them. Not to mention a mere human. Moreover, he was a young human brat. Lin Xian sat high on the throne, and his cold voice sounded, "I am the master of Immortal Palace, and I am on equal footing with your Silver Electric Race's patriarch. How dare you be presumptuous in front of me? You really have no manners. Quickly kneel down and apologize." His voice was like thunder, carrying a biting cold murderous aura that surrounded the 9 heavens. When these words came out, everyone was stunned. The warriors of Immortal Palace couldn't believe that their palace master was actually so powerful. The Silver Electric Race's expert was also stunned. He couldn't believe his ears. The next moment he screamed, "Brat, what did you say? You want me to kneel down and apologize? You're courting death. Believe it or not, I'll take your head off right now." He took a step forward, and lightning surged on his body, turning into lightning beasts that surrounded him, filling the void. "You want my head? Do you have the ability?" Lin Xian also stood up, and his 9 young divine body bloomed with light. Not only that, but sword energy rushed out from his body, turning into a true dragon that circled around him, making him look like a god of war. "Palace Master, you can't!" The head protector and the others cried out in alarm. Although they were furious, they really couldn't start a war with the 10,000 ancient races now. The 10,000 ancient races were too terrifying. If they didn't handle it well, it would really trigger a great war. That result was something that no one could bear. Seeing the surrounding elders persuade him, the Silver Electric Race's expert threw his head back and laughed loudly. "Ha ha 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 ha, brat, do you see that? These experts of Immortal Palace are all afraid of me, and don't dare to fight with me at all. You still don't know what's good for you. Kneel down and apologize to me now, and I can consider sparing your life." Humph. Lin Xian's eyes were filled with biting cold killing intent. They didn't dare to, but that didn't mean that he didn't dare to. At this point, the sword energy on his body swept through the sky, charging towards the Silver Electric Race's expert. A shocking sword strike that made heaven and earth pale. In an instant, everyone felt as if their bodies were pierced through. This sword light was too piercingly cold. Although Lin Xian didn't obtain many treasures in the nest of 10,000 dragons, his great dragon sword soul had absorbed an endless amount of dragon Dao aura. So it was revived again. His strength had increased exponentially. At this moment, when he displayed it, It was truly shocking to the heavens and earth. Courting death. The Silver Electric Race's expert was also furious. He urged the lightning beasts around him to quickly pounce forward. They collided with the sword light. Lightning burst out in the sky, wanting to destroy the sword light. However, under this sword all things were destroyed. All of the lightning beasts were split apart by the sword. The cuts were flat, and they couldn't be revived at all. The lightning also quickly dimmed, and then disappeared into the void. Only waves of white smoke rose. Buzz. Chapter 2786. Not good. The Silver Lightning Race powerhouse's expression changed. He did not expect the other party's sword chi to be so powerful. He roared angrily, and his fist surged, turning into a mountain as he faced the attack. Clang! Above him, the two collided. Pooh! Silver blood splattered, piercing through the void. The Silver Lightning Race powerhouse retracted his palm, and kept retreating, screaming. His fist was split in half. His strange face was also incomparably distorted. His eyes were blood red. Damn brat, how dare you hurt me? He was extremely angry, but at the same time, he was also filled with fear. The other party's strength had far exceeded his imagination. He was actually able to easily injure him with a single sword strike. It was simply too unbelievable. One had to know that he was from the 10,000 ancient races. He was powerful, and his physique was even more powerful. Even a heaven-grade weapon might not be able to break through his defense. Damn it. You. He still wanted to say something, but in the next moment he screamed. The sword chi in front of him once again covered the sky and the earth, enveloping him. Damn it, get lost. With an angry roar, silver lightning quickly rushed out from his body, turning into lightning balls. The terrifying lightning balls exploded, forming a sea of lightning that filled the sky, blasting away all the sword chi. Brat, I was careless just now. You want to kill me? You're still far from it. The Silver Lightning Race powerhouse sneered again. But in the next moment he trembled, because he saw a dragon-shaped sword shadow slash across his neck. Instantly, half of his neck was cut open, and blood flowed wildly, dyeing his body red. He did not know when the other party had already appeared behind him, and a cold voice sounded in his ear. Do you think it's difficult for me to kill you? He trembled extremely. The Silver Lightning Race powerhouse's body trembled. The other party could have killed him directly with that sword strike just now. However, the other party did not. He only cut open half of his neck. This meant that the other party was warning him. I'll give you one last chance. Kneel down and apologize. Brat, you're courting death. Kill me if you can. The Silver Lightning Race powerhouse shouted angrily. He guessed that the other party did not dare to make a move at all. He must have some scruples. Pooh. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt a chill on his neck, and his head and body were separated. With a plop, his body fell to the ground. Lin Xian grabbed the man's head. Do you think I don't dare? Ah, damned brat, you dared to kill me. You're dead meat. The Silver Lightning Tribe will never let you off. The head roared furiously. At that time, when my Silver Lightning clan's great army presses down, your immortal palace will be dead for sure. Su Chen sneered. How dare he still be so stubborn? Acting recklessly. Do you believe that I can destroy your soul with a single move? He waved his dragon-shaped sword, and a terrifying sword chi locked onto the head. The Silver Lightning Race expert's head was shocked, and his eyes were filled with fear. Indeed, he felt a destructive aura that could easily destroy his soul. Damn it, who the hell is this kid? How could it be so terrifying? What was that dragon-shaped sword in his hand? Why was it able to cut his body apart so easily? He was an expert of the Silver Lightning Race, but in the eyes of the other party, he was like an ant. He could not believe it. Su Chen snorted coldly. With a wave of his hand, he threw away the other party's head. The head flew out and merged with the corpse on the ground, forming a complete body. The Silver Lightning Race expert recovered. His face was pale, and he looked at the other party with an unusually cold gaze. Kid, I'll fight you. He opened his mouth and spat out a sickle that emitted a simple and heavy aura. It seemed to be an ancient treasure. He wanted to fight with his life on the line. However, golden runes appeared in Lin Xian's eyes. Buzz. His heavenly secret divine eyes were activated, and a terrifying soul attack rushed out. Ah! The other party's body trembled as he screamed crazily. He did not expect Lin Xian to use a soul attack. Therefore, he was careless and his soul power was severely injured. The golden runes in Lin Xian's eyes spun rapidly, forming mysterious patterns one after another. He directly controlled the other party. Kneel down. A cold voice sounded. The silver lightning race expert's eyes were lifeless. With a plop, he knelt on the ground and kowtowed continuously. This scene shocked everyone. In particular, the elders of Immortal Palace sucked in a breath of cold air. The chief enforcer, Li Xuanxian, and the others had solemn expressions. Although they had subdued the silversmith race expert, the situation was not optimistic. After all, the other party was backed by the Silver Lightning race. They were an extremely terrifying race among the 10,000 ancient races. Lin Xian looked at the chief enforcer, Li Xuanxian, and the other elders and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, I won't kill him. Also, do you think that we can exchange for safety if we keep on giving in?" Hearing this, Li Xuanxian and the chief enforcer's bodies stiffened, and a trace of shock appeared in their eyes. Lin Xian continued, "Chaos is coming, and the 10,000 ancient races are recovering. Only a powerful force can suppress everything. Otherwise, no matter how respectful and courteous you are, the other party will probably raise the butcher's knife in their hand and mercilessly chop you down. Therefore, there is no need to be afraid when facing the 10,000 ancient races. If we can win, we will fight. If we can't, even if we have to risk our lives, we will bite off a piece of their flesh and let them know that we are not to be trifled with. Before anyone dares to touch us, they should think about the consequences of doing so. This way, our immortal palace will be able to survive in this chaotic world. Otherwise, everyone will think that we are cowards and easy to bully. This way, there will be endless 10,000 ancient races coming to bully us. Are you willing to live such a life?" Lin Xian's voice echoed in the surroundings. Hearing this, the elders felt their scalps go numb. Indeed, they were too shocked by the information of the 10,000 ancient races, and forgot about these things. Even if they gave in today, the Silver Lightning race would not be nice to them. In the future, they would definitely be even more greedy and bully them. Therefore, whether they submitted or resisted, the result would be the same. The other party would have to fight sooner or later. If that was the case, why not resist? Perhaps they could even make them afraid and hurt them in advance. In the next moment, everyone looked at the Silver Lightning race's experts kneeling in the hall. Lin Xian also looked at them and said coldly, "Get lost. Tell your people that I will only give you a range of 100,000 miles. You can be safe and sound in that range, but if you dare to run around outside, I will kill you without mercy. Get lost." With a wave of his sleeve, he sent the Silver Lightning race's expert flying. At the same time, he removed the soul control. The Silver Lightning race's expert vomited blood and flew out of the hall. His body also recovered. Thinking of what happened before, he was so angry that he vomited blood and went crazy. "Ah!" He roared at the sky. Lightning surged on his body, turning into a lightning dragon that roared in all directions. That damn brat! He was so angry that he went crazy. He was a dignified expert of the Silver Lightning race. When had he ever knelt and kowtowed to a human? This was intolerable. Chapter 2787. He discovered that the elders and experts who had been afraid of him before were now emitting an incomparably cold killing intent, firmly locking onto him. He had no doubt that as long as he made a move, these elders would mercilessly attack and kill him. "Damn brat, just you wait. All of you, just you wait. My Silver Lightning race will definitely not let this matter rest. Just wait for the fury of my 10,000 ancient races." After speaking, the Silver Lightning race expert turned around and left. Like a stray dog, he quickly fled. "Humph." Lin Xian coldly snorted. The eyes of the Immortal Palace cultivators all flickered. Previously, the other party had been acting arrogant, but when they hardened their hearts and prepared to fight to the death, the other party was afraid. Didn't this confirm what Lin Xian had said before? Facing the 10,000 ancient races, they must not cower. They must fight to the death. Send people to investigate the Silver Lightning race's movements. At the same time, call back our people and fully activate the array, ready for battle. Lin Xian's voice was ice cold. He guessed that the Silver Lightning race would definitely make some moves, but Immortal Palace would not be afraid. Following this, the elders and disciples all began to move. In fact, it wasn't just Immortal Palace. At the same time, the Yi family, Gu family, Jade Pool, Alcade and many other great sects and dynasties all received these ancient creatures. This was because the 10,000 ancient races of true spirit world had recovered. Wherever they recovered, the 10,000 ancient races would send their own experts to communicate with the local great sections. Of course, the content of the communication was similar. Most of them wanted a stable territory, so that other human cultivators couldn't casually step in. Although 5 million miles was a large distance, it was still a drop in the ocean for the great sections. Moreover, the reputation of the 10,000 ancient races was too strong. Therefore, ordinary great sects didn't dare to contend with them at all. They all tacitly agreed to give up 5 million miles of territory in exchange for temporary peace. The ancient race powerhouses who had gone there all returned satisfied. They held their heads high and left the great sects with pride. Many great sects even sent a group of elders to see them off. When the other warriors saw this scene, they were all stunned. Huge waves even surged in their hearts. What's going on? So many ancient creatures had appeared, and the elders of the great sects of the human Holy Land treated them so respectfully. What's going on? There must have been a secret negotiation. However, it seemed like the great sects of the human race had given in. Damn it! It can't be. Could it be that the 10,000 ancient races can regain control of the entire true spirit world, without even a war? Everyone's face was filled with despair. Of course, not all the great sects in the Holy Land were so humble. There were some who were more forceful. Although there hadn't been any major battles, their territory had shrunk from 5 million miles to 4 million miles, or 3 million miles. The ancient creatures negotiated with him, and eventually, they all agreed to his request. After all, the strength and foundation of these great sects were extremely terrifying. However, on Immortal Palace and Lin Xian's side, they directly declared war, making the other side kowtow and apologize, moreover throwing them out. This was probably the only one in the world. Even the remote antiquity families wouldn't dare to do that. At this moment, the Yi clan also welcomed a figure. A figure bathed in flames descended upon the Yi family, like a god of fire. At this moment, the elders of the Yi clan all had unsightly expressions. Yi Wudao sat there with a gloomy expression. The Yi clan head's eyes flickered. This was because the other side had made the same request. They wanted to draw a 5 million mile forbidden zone near the Yi clan, and no one was allowed to enter. Even the Yi clan couldn't approach. This was hard for the Yi clan experts to accept. Their Yi clan was a remote antiquity family, a descendant of the Emperor clan. In the true spirit world, especially the Eastern Wasteland, they were a true overlord. When the other great sects of the Holy Land saw them, they would have to lower their heads. Perhaps, apart from the other remote antiquity families, and the great sects of the Holy Land that possessed extreme weapons, no one was their match. But now, these ancient creatures had come out and demanded to divide the Yi clan's territory. They were truly reckless. However, the Yi clan head's expression was grave. This wasn't an ordinary ancient creature, but a powerhouse of the ancient royal race. The ancient royal race was an extremely terrifying existence. The vermilion bird race was an extremely terrifying existence among the ancient royal race. The vermilion bird was a divine beast of the world, and the vermilion bird race had the bloodline of a divine beast flowing through their veins. They were extremely terrifying. But so what if they were terrifying? The Yi clan wasn't to be trifled with. The Yi clan was the descendant of a great emperor, an emperor race. Among the 10,000 ancient races, they were equivalent to royalty. How could they be afraid of the vermilion bird race? Therefore, the smell of gunpowder between the two sides was very strong, and they were in a deadlock. They were on the verge of starting a war. Humph! The vermilion bird powerhouse was bathed in divine flames as he said coldly, "So what if you're the descendant of a great emperor? Your great emperor is no longer here. But the ancestor of the vermilion bird race is still alive. If you really anger us, the ancestor of the vermilion bird race will descend and destroy your Yi clan. Let's see if the great emperor you believe in can save you then." The moment these words came out, the faces of the Yi clan elders changed. The disciples of the Yi clan also cried out in alarm. What? The ancestor of the vermilion bird race was still alive? Heavens, how many tens of thousands of years had it lived? Although it was sealed with divine crystals, it was still too terrifying. To think that there was such a terrifying powerhouse hidden in the Yi clan's territory. It really made them feel a lingering fear. How dare you threaten the Yi clan? Is the ancestor of the vermilion bird race very powerful? A grand elder of the Yi clan stood up. He looked to be in his 30s, but he was indeed a grand elder who had lived for more than 3,000 years. He was very terrifying, and his temper was very fiery. When he heard the other party's arrogant words, the grand elder was furious. Do you really think that the Yi clan is easy to bully? Do you really think that your vermilion bird race's ancestor can sweep through everything? Today, I'll let you see the foundation of the Yi clan. After saying this, he snorted coldly, and a burst of golden blood rushed out of his body, turning into a pillar of light that shot into the sky. Buzz! In the depths of the Yi clan, a primitive aura surged out, bringing with it a destructive power. Although it was only a trace, it made everyone tremble. The powerful being from the vermilion bird tribe, in particular, was sprawled on the ground in utter terror. Damn it, what was that? This aura was too powerful, surpassing the might of a saint. An extreme weapon. Damn it, it was an extreme weapon. He was too shocked. He didn't expect that the Yi clan had left behind an extreme weapon. Now that it was activated, the emperor's might of the extreme weapon was not something that he could withstand. Chapter 2788. Seeing the vermilion bird lying on the ground and trembling, the experts in the Yi family's main hall all laughed. What vermilion bird race? In front of the Yi family's extreme weapon, wouldn't they kneel and crawl? The vermilion bird race's expert had an ugly expression. His eyes were burning with anger. Damn it! How dare you treat me like this? I'll have the family destroy you. He was furious. When had he ever been so afraid in front of so many humans? Humph! The grand elder snorted and waved his hand. Immediately, the extreme weapon's pressure disappeared without a trace. The vermilion bird race's expert also stood up from the ground. His body trembled, and killing intent surged out of his body. Yi Wudao also took a step forward. His golden aura surged as he faced the grand elder without fear. Seeing that the atmosphere was getting more and more tense, the Yi family's patriarch spoke. We can draw the 5 million mile area you mentioned. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. The vermilion bird race's expert smiled. But soon his smile froze. The Yi family's patriarch continued. However, you can't stay in the Yi family's territory. You can move out of the Yi family's territory and divide it in another ungoverned territory. The vermilion bird race's expert's expression turned ugly. He wanted them to retreat. Wasn't this admitting that the vermilion bird race was afraid of the other party? If news of this spread, the vermilion bird race would lose face. How would they survive in the future? They would probably be laughed at by countless people. Impossible. The vermilion bird race's expert refused. The Yi family's patriarch didn't get angry. Instead, he said indifferently, "You felt the emperor's pressure just now, right? Our Yi family has a complete extreme weapon, and we have enough resources and ability to fully activate it. How much do you know about the extreme weapon's power? I can tell you about it. 30,000 years ago, a demonic sect appeared in the eastern wilderness. It was extremely terrifying. Its strength was equivalent to that of a top holy land, but its methods were extremely cruel, and it killed countless people. In order to return peace to the world, the Yi family's Saint Physite carried an extreme weapon and destroyed the demonic palace with a single attack. All the experts inside were killed. Not a single one of them came out alive. 50,000 years ago, the demon race prospered. A peerless genius appeared and became a demon saint. Their strength was extremely terrifying, and they slaughtered the human race. At the critical moment, the saint of the Yi family once again brought out an extreme weapon. With one strike he sank half of the Eastern Barren territory and killed the talented saint of the demon race. At this point, the Yi family's martial artist Old Zhang was very excited. They all clenched their fists. The faces of the Vermilion Bird tribe elites became paler and paler. In fact, even without the other party's explanation, he already knew how terrifying and powerful these extreme weapons were. That was a weapon forged and used by a great emperor. It contained an extremely powerful emperor's might, surpassing that of a saint. As long as he was revived, it would be equivalent to a great emperor temporarily descending into the mortal world. His power would definitely be unimaginable, and he would be able to sweep through everything. Seeing the other party's expression, the Yi clan's patriarch smiled. Very good. It seems like you know the power of an extreme weapon. Then, how far is the Vermilion Bird tribe from my Yi clan's headquarters? Would he be able to dodge the attack of an extreme weapon? At this point, the Vermilion Bird race's expert's expression changed greatly and cold sweat appeared on his back. His clothes were wet, and the flames on his body dimmed. That's right, they were incomparably powerful and wanted to suppress the Yi clan. But they forgot that they were too close to the Yi clan. If the Yi clan was angered and directly used an extreme weapon, the Vermilion Bird tribe would not be able to escape. After all, this distance was completely within the attack range of an extreme weapon. Even if their patriarch was resurrected, it would probably be useless. Just the aftermath of that energy would be able to destroy any existence below a saint. Thinking of this, his attitude changed. I can't make the decision on this matter. I need to go back and discuss it with the elders of the Vermilion Bird tribe. No problem, there's no hurry. The Yi clan's patriarch smiled. I'll give you a month to discuss it. Men, send the guests out. The Yi clan's patriarch waved his hand, and the elders of the Yi clan sent the Vermilion Bird tribe elite out of the Yi clan's residence. After the Vermilion Bird tribe elite left the Yi clan's residence, he turned into a fiery red light and instantly left. This was a big matter, a big crisis. He had to report it quickly. Ha ha ha. After the Vermilion Bird tribe elite left, the elders of the Yi clan also laughed loudly. What Vermilion Bird tribe? No matter how strong they are nothing in front of the Yi clan. That's right, once an extreme weapon is used, it will sweep away everything. However, the Yi clan's patriarch and the grand elders had grave expressions. The Yi clan's patriarch sighed. He was not so optimistic. Although the Vermilion Bird tribe was strong, they were only a royal clan. Above the royal clan was the immemorial royal clan. Those were also clans with great emperors. In their hands, it was very likely that they also had extreme weapons. When the time came to encounter them, they would have no advantage. The atmosphere in the hall became heavy once again. Indeed, the other party also had the bloodline of a great emperor, and even had extreme weapons left in the world, so they had to be careful. However, they didn't know how many extreme weapons the other party had. Not only the Yi clan, but the Gu clan, Jade Pool, Alcade, Dowie Holy Ground, and other sacred grounds with extreme weapons all displayed the emperor's might of their extreme weapons to scare away the immemorial royal clan. Figures left in a sorry state one after another, which made the cultivators outside breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, these powerful families and sacred grounds could still intimidate these immemorial royal clan. There was still a glimmer of hope for the human race. In addition to the eastern wilderness, the western desert, Nanling Mountains, and northern plains were the same. Some sacred grounds and sects directly surrendered and ceded 5 million miles of land. Some negotiated with each other to reduce the land. Some directly drove the immemorial royal clan away. In short, the atmosphere around the world was very tense. However, Zhongzhou was not so lucky. The divine dynasties and sacred grounds in Zhongzhou were very depressed. Especially those divine dynasties near Qinling Mountains, their expressions were even more ugly. They had no choice because the nest of 10,000 dragons was here. The nest of 10,000 dragons was the nest of dragons. The dragons were the immemorial royal clan and were very terrifying. Moreover, among the dragons, there had been a great emperor. The dragon emperor was very famous. Even now, there were still people who remembered his records. One could imagine how terrifying the dragon emperor was back then. The dragon emperor must have left behind an extreme weapon to suppress in the nest of 10,000 dragons. Therefore, this was definitely a very dangerous place. Ever since the dragons revived, the surrounding Ninely dynasty and Great Xia dynasty directly abandoned that area. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.